Dual Cultivation audiobook by Kevin Volume 5 Chapter 20. It's been exactly 1 week since I found that goosefish-like fish. Right now I'm walking through the canyon, watching over the girls as they attempt to go back to town on their own. Last one, Conan, rocket punch. Elia's magic pulverized the 3 skeletons in front of them. After confirming the skeletons gone for good, Conan spoke. It's over. Let's rest for a bit. Conan, according to the map, there's a place we can rest at just a little up ahead. And since we're resting anyway, we might as well have lunch early. Riera, sounds good. And in fact, since it'll take time to prepare the food, we'll probably end up eating just in time anyway. Michelle, our training these past few days involved me gathering ghouls for the girls to fight in the morning, while Shiva-san would instruct them on marching in the afternoon. Thanks to that, they can now end their battles safely. The battles became even easier when Elia learned my original magic rocket punch. Don't get fooled by the name, though. Despite being called rocket punch, the spell doesn't actually have anything to do with punching stuff. It's actually just bashing a lump of magic power against something. So even someone like Elia, who's relatively untrained compared to their group's 2 vanguards or me, can knock the undead down. In fact, she's more than able of taking out up to 6 targets at a time. On top of that, it also works against creatures immune to physical attacks like wraiths. And with the magic consumption being only about the level of an intermediate magic, for someone like Elia who's used to handling advanced magic like Firestorm, handling this spell is a cinch. I only taught it to Elia because she asked after seeing me use it, but it seems to suit magicians like her who have lots of magic power. The battles aren't a problem anymore, but the girls still aren't used to moving with their guards up. They get tired easily, so they end up having to rest a lot, which in turn slows down their pace. In fact, it's already the 3rd day since we left. After a little walk, we reached a partially caved cliff. Looks like we're stopping here for a break. Riera, Conan, and Michelle spread out into a fan-shaped formation, covering each other's blind spots. They kept a lookout like that as they called out to us. Foo. We'd like to rest here. Elia, well, don't mind us. Shiva, right. You should just go on your own pace, Elia-chan. Elia seemed apologetic when she said that since we had to match their pace, but Shiva-san and Nisan just told her and the others that they didn't mind. It's true that they're slower than us, but it's not like we're in a hurry. We really don't mind. When I told her that, she quietly laughed and took out the magic tool that could pour water and some dried meat. Looks like Elia and Miyabi will be prepping our food. They already learned this from school, so they could already do it well. The undead would frolic into our camp from time to time, but the 3 girls that were keeping watch made short work of them, so we just passed the time waiting for food by patrolling the area and making light talk. All right, let's go. Michelle, we might even make it to town today. Though we'll definitely make it by tomorrow as long as we proceed carefully. Riera, just a little bit more, will definitely get there. Miyabi, after eating and resting in turns, then confirming the route they would take, the girls excitedly resumed their journey. The 4 adults and I followed from behind. The girls still found themselves running into an undead or 2, but their numbers were clearly decreasing. We're getting nearer. Thanks to that, the girls were able to increase their pace without straining themselves. Then evening came. By the time the sky was red, we could see holes dug by adventurers here and there. They must have left before it got dark. There were no people in sight, but we were definitely close. A glance at the map proved that. We should be able to reach town before it gets really dark. It was then that Conan suddenly spoke. Huh, Conan, what's wrong? Michelle, is something the matter? Elia, the girls immediately went on guard. I did too, and I even asked the adults with a glance whether they could sense something, but their response indicated a no. Then Conan inhaled deeply through her nose. I knew it. The adventurers we met a while ago are somewhere nearby. Conan, a while ago. You mean Oslo-san? Ryama, right. I can smell the same perfume from the wind. Kanan, the woman with them, didn't take baths while in the canyon because the rotting smell of the undead would just stick, so she just put on some perfume instead. That's probably what Kanan is picking up, though I can't say for sure. Beast tribe people sure have amazing noses. But it seems Miyabi has no idea either, so I guess it's just the dog tribe that has amazing noses. I can't pinpoint exactly how far they are, but I can tell they're right on our course. Kanan, they bought a week's worth of supplies last time, and it's almost a week already. They must be on their way home too. Ramiri, since we're coming from the same direction, we might as well say hi. Ryalma no one opposed the idea, so we went ahead and headed for Oslo's group. After a 10-minute walk, 11 figures entered our sight. They were resting against some rocks by the corner of a road that was about as wide as 4 adults standing side by side with their arms spread. One of them had wings extending from his back. This was undoubtedly Oslo's group, but something is off. Shiva, maybe something happened. Ramiri, they made small movements like shaking or scratching their head, but they weren't saying anything. They're just standing with their backs against the stones like that with their heads down. From the faces I could make out, their eyes seem to be closed. I can't figure out whether they have their guard up or are just resting. They could also just be tired, but they're supposed to be veterans. They should be long been used to this kind of work. Yet a group of people like that actually ended up so fatigued that they can't talk. If that's true, then something big must have happened. I walked ahead of the group while the 4 adults kept the girls from following. They must have thought the same thing. As I approached the odd group, I stealthily braced myself before greeting them. "Good day, Ryalma." When I greeted them, all of them took their weapons out and headed toward me. It was as if they hadn't noticed me a while ago and were just now realizing my presence. "It's me. I sold you food, remember?" And Ryalma, while I tried to break the hostile atmosphere, I put my left hand on my katana just in case. But just as I was trying to talk to them, seeing their faces made me stop. There were no wounds on their bodies. They were no different from a group of extremely cautious adventurers. But their expressions, it was as if they'd lost all emotion, as every one of them wore the same expressionless face. Something is very wrong, I thought. Then I realized that a blunt, shiny object was thrusting from my throat. It was Oslo-san's spear. I immediately leaned back and retreated as I unsheathed my katana and fended off the spear. I'd intended to cut the spear, but Oslo-san managed to retreat, there's no doubting it. Just now he was aiming for my neck. That could have been fatal. "Step back. Shiva, get ready to move whenever." Rainbok. The 4 adults stepped forward as they warned the girls to protect them. Shiva-san and Rainbok-sama walked up to my side. "That was a bit dangerous. I could have died if it hit, you know." Ryalma, while our relationship wasn't deep, it still felt bad getting attacked like that. So I ended up saying something lighthearted. "I don't think they're bad people, though. They might be able to fool me with some good guy act, but there's no way they could fool the 4 veterans with us. So does that mean they really have turned into undead? But they're uninjured. There are no wounds or anything on them. The only thing off is that pale complexion of theirs, but it's not so bad that they look like corpses or anything. Yet there's no denying that Oslo-san really did try to kill me just now. Moreover, there's that issue with their expressions and their lack of response. They don't feel human at all. Looks like we're gonna have to fight." Oslo-san stepped back and regrouped with 10 of his other members. They stood in formation as they set their sights toward us. Then Rainbok-sama, who was standing to my left, suddenly spoke solemnly. "These people are being controlled." Rainbok. "Controlled?" Ryalma, like brainwashing. "I've seen it many times back in the army. I don't know if it's good fortune or not, but they're not dead. We can treat them after catching them. There's quite a bit, but it should be doable, no?" Shiva. This time Shiva-san spoke grimly from my right. The way he spoke seemed to suggest I could expect much from the battle. At the same time, he seemed to be asking, yet the way he said it seemed less a question and more a conclusion. Not that it matters anyway. If they're alive, then there's only one thing to do. Sorry about this. Rusty Mist. Ryama I took the first move and casted the dark and water spell Rusty Mist. With its wide area of effect and a cliff on either side of the path here, there's no way for them to dodge. And like that, a thin, black mist shrouded them. However, there was a wind mage on their side, and it only took the mage a spell to blow away the mist. But that was more than enough, because now the three vanguards of theirs have had all their metallic equipment rusted. Even Oslo-san's spear couldn't escape that fate. The three vanguards attacked regardless of their rusted equipment. Amateur. Shiva-san thrust his halberd toward the woman armed with a mace and a shield. The woman raised her shield to protect herself, but that was exactly Shiva-san's aim. With the rusted shield already weakened, it could not stand the Ki-infused attack. The shield broke and its fragments fell to the ground, during which Shiva-san brought his halberd back, then struck the woman with the halberd's butt, breaking her legs and arms, effectively incapacitating her. As expected of the former Knight Commander and a current S-rank adventurer. The woman wasn't the only enemy, however, and a man came swinging with a battle hammer from his left. It was then that Rainbow-sama appeared, flashing his sword as he passed the man, cutting the man's leg as he turned around. He didn't cut the whole leg, only the tendon. That was enough to render the man incapacitated. As the hammer fell to the ground, the man came tumbling shortly after. I can't be standing around doing nothing either. Let's see, the next one is also a man. It's Barak-san. I struck out with the back of my katana toward his shoulder, and Barak-san tried to block with his rusted sword, only to have it break as my katana crushed his shoulder. As he fell to the ground, I struck his left shoulder one more time, then I broke his left leg. With this he's out. That makes 3. Next. Their group's mage also casted magic against us, but Rimiri Nisan and Sebasu would either repel with their own magic or keep the mage from casting, so it wasn't a problem. After 2 minutes, we were able to safely suppress everyone without killing. The battle was a lot easier than expected, though that was mostly because they moved poorly. It was probably because they were being controlled that they couldn't bring out their full strength. In terms of undead, they're actually worse than the ghouls. Even their teamwork was poor. You. Save me. RUN, after taking away their weapons, tying them up with a rope, and handcuffing them with cuffs made with earth magic, we started their treatment. It didn't take long before this group that had been quiet all this time started groaning. Rimiri Nisan examined them. Is everything all right? Ryama, there shouldn't be any problem. They've just finally recovered their consciousness. Rimiri, I see. So, what is all this about? Ryama finally able to ask the question that's been bothering me since the battle. I asked with no reserve. Rimiri Nisan and Shiva-san frowned before appearing worried, then they looked toward Ilya's group. They were standing some distance away, but they were clearly concerned about our discussion. Is this something they want to keep from the girls? In that case, I have plenty of ways to keep others from listening in our discussion, you know. Ryama, Tilda, it's fine even if they hear. As long as they know just enough anyway. Rimiri, so it really is a bad topic. Well, it's no surprise, I suppose. I'd already thought it would be ever since brainwashing came to mind. These guys were definitely under the influence of a dark spell, the curse of obedience. And just as the name implies, those under the spell have no choice but to obey whatever the caster ordered them to do. Rimiri, so it really was that sort of magic. Ryama, right. But the only ones who can use it are those few permitted by the country. And even then, it's usually only used as a last resort in some criminal investigations or against some major criminal. I don't know who would use something like that here, but I find it hard to believe they would just use it to attack people. Rimiri, either way it's a big problem. Ryama, exactly. My head hurts. We might find something out if we undo the spell, so let's focus on that first. You'll help out too, right, Ryama-chan? Rimiri, naturally. So what do I do? Ryalma, you can undo the curse with either the light magic dispel or the dark magic curse transfer. If it looks like you're about to get cursed yourself, you can just use anti-curse or return curse. So the same as usual. Ramiri, all right. Ryalma, I thought we would be working separately, but Ramiri Neeson stopped me. It would be better to work together. Lifting this kind of curse puts a lot of strain on the afflicted, so they might go wild. There's no telling what'll happen after the curse is lifted either. Lifting the curse as quickly as possible is the best way to minimize the strain. Ramiri, sure, is an annoying curse. Ryalma, that's just how dangerous of a spell it is. Ramiri, well, it is a brainwashing spell. It's not hard to imagine it having bad side effects. Elia and the other adults kept watch while Ramiri Neeson and I went to work. After talking a bit more, it was decided that I would be using curse transfer while Ramiri Neeson used dispel. Image-wise, I would be pulling the curse from their body while Ramiri Neeson would be pushing the curse out from behind. In no more, Oslo, the first patient, was Oslo-san. Among the patients he babbles the most. That was proof that he was regaining his consciousness, so Ramiri Neeson chose him to be the first. Oslo-san, I'll do my best. I pulled out a pitch-black wand from my item box. The wand itself was glossless, but the hexagonal, black, crystal prism attached at the end of it sparkled brilliantly. I bowed to Oslo-san before starting. Are you ready? Ramiri, yes. Ryalma, this wand is made from the branch of the elder tree we defeated a long time ago and the fragment of the demon king. I applied the method of using everlasting darkness herb that I learned from Ramiri Neeson with the skill of wand-making learned from Tekun to create this magic wand that specializes in dark magic. It's a product that has received Tekun's seal of approval, so you could imagine just how powerful it is. In fact, I rarely use it because it's usually overkill to use with offensive dark magic. I even feel guilty every time I recall trying it out on those poor bandits once. But I digress. This time around, I'm just going to be using it to lift a curse, so it doesn't matter how powerful the wand is. I can go all out. I'm starting all right. Match my timing, 1, 2, 3, dispel, Ramiri, curse transfer, Ryalma R, Oslo. When we started, Oslo-san abruptly shook, then stiffened. Then he started shaking again, but this time he was clearly in pain. You, Oslo, run. Oslo-san suddenly screamed. I was warned of the patient possibly going wild, but this patient sure isn't hesitating even a little. There shouldn't have been anything above my head, but out of the blue, I felt magic power gather in that supposedly empty space. Volume 5, Chapter 21. The Man Picked Up by the Gods. Volume 5, Chapter 21. I wasn't the only one to notice the gathering of magic power over my head. Ramiri Neeson noticed it too, and we both looked up. When we did, what greeted us were the bones of a human covered in tattered rags and some confusing clothing, floating there about 10 m above the ground. What's a skeleton doing up there? And why didn't I notice it until now? It was curious, but I knew without a doubt that the source of that magic power I felt was none other than that floating skeleton. I could also tell from the eerie feeling emanating from it that that magic power was the same kind as that used in curses. Ramiri Neeson thought the same, and we both stopped Oslo-san's treatment at the same time as we both tried to erect our own defensive spells, but ka. The faint sounds of what seemed to be laughing bones reached my ears. The target was me. No, it's already begun casting. Please make it in time. I prayed as I poured all of my strength into my defensive magic. Time slowed to a crawl, and it felt like I could see everything as it all unfolded before me. The other 8 who were keeping watch all started casting their magic toward the skeleton. The adults first, then the girls, who were only a moment slower, but the skeleton had a head start. In the midst of that chaos and confusion, only one spell fired. From my shadow, Ka stretched out a black pillar that reached for the heavens, grazing past the skeleton's cheeks as it did. But that only happened because the skeleton dodged. If it hadn't, that pillar would have gone right through its forehead. Return curse, Ryalma. Cutter storm, Rainbok. Flame bomb, Shiva. Water cutter, Sabasu. The black pillar vanished like mist blown as it missed its target while the skeleton cast its magic toward me. But dodging that pillar delayed it, and my return curse made it in time. As the skeleton's spell deflected, Rainbok Sama, Shiva-san, and Sabasu-san simultaneously shot their spells. The skeleton tried to dodge the onslaught of spells, but it failed, and the 3 spells smashed into it. However, it's still alive. Ryalma, the 3 spells definitely hurt the skeleton, but they weren't enough to finish it off. I'm not sure exactly how, but this thing isn't like the rest of those weak skeletons. Kaka. Ryalma, it ran. Riera, I braced myself for an attack, but the skeleton just flew higher and higher before finally bolting off. When Riera spoke, the skeleton had already vanished toward the cliff. Are you okay? Sorry for letting that thing get through. Shiva, I'm fine. These slimes saved me. Ryalma, I ordered the slimes to show themselves, and 10 shadow slimes came out of my shadow. The earlier spell was none other than these guys' shadow needle. Looks like it finally paid off, having these shadow slimes shadow me all the time. I would have been in a pretty bad spot had they not been here. I'll feed them plenty of magic power later as a treat. Still, just what in the world was that skeleton? Remiri, that was a lick. Remiri, lick, as in that lick. Ryalma, naturally. Remiri liches are a higher variation of wraiths that specialize in magic. Their magic and fighting style vary from specimen to specimen, but their strength is enough to get them at the very least a B-rank subjugation request. I've heard of liches, but it's my first time seeing one. It probably used the dark magic hide to shroud its presence while it quietly approached us from the sky. Considering the timing and the fact that it tried to curse you just now, it might have been the one responsible for the curse behind Oslo's group. Remiri X Act Lie. Oslo-san. Ryalma, while Remiri Neeson was explaining her hypothesis, I heard a weak voice from behind. I impatiently turned to that voice, and what I saw was none other than Oslo-san. We stopped the treatment halfway through, yet he actually managed to regain consciousness. Is his body all right? Oslo-san, how are you feeling? Ryalma, can I have some water? Oslo, I quickly prepared a glass of water with the right balance of water and sugar added into it and gave it to Oslo-san, who thoroughly emptied the glass. Thanks, I'm feeling better now. Oslo, how about your mind? Are you able to think straight? Ryalma, I still have to focus or else, Oslo, as he suddenly lost strength in his legs, I hurriedly went up to support him. Oslo-san, he's fainted. Ryalma, he'd fainted, but there wasn't anything odd about his breath or his countenance. Ryalma-chan, please cast curse transfer again. His condition should change for the better so long as we completely undo the curse. Remiri, it's also best that we leave this place as soon as possible. Sorry to hurry you, but please quickly finish the treatment for the others as well. Rainbok, I'm on it. Ryalma, I want to leave here too, but we have to undo their curses first or they might suddenly go crazy. We have to hurry. After that, Remiri Neeson and I did our best to quickly treat Oslo and his group. One small mercy is that while Oslo and his members seemed weak, there was no danger to their lives. After hiding them in Sabasu-san's dimension home, we resumed our trip back to town. We walked through the narrow path surrounded by cliffs until we reached an open space, where we all entered the dimension home. Inside were Oslo's group, who were all still cuffed for safety's sake. Oslo-san, Barak-san, Nelsan, and another woman seemed to have regained their consciousness. How are you feeling? Ryalma, you're that guy from last week, Woman, the woman tried to stand up as she weakly spoke, but she lost strength in her legs and fell down. Don't force yourself. Remiri Neeson quickly reacted and distributed the glasses of water Sabasu-san had prepared. It seems they haven't realized that they're safe now. I thought I was dreaming. Oslo, looks like you saved us again. Nell, enough about that already. You've been cursed and your bodies are still weak, so just rest. Ramiri, Oslo-san, and Nelson seemed to finally understand the situation, but Ramiri Neeson just told them to rest. But Barak-san ignored Ramiri Neeson's orders and he forced himself up. Thanks, but we need to get word to the guild as soon as possible. Barak, you can't even move without hurting. We'll inform the guild ourselves, so don't worry about that. Rather, how about telling us what happened instead? Ryalma, after hearing their story, it turns out that that lick cursed them about 2 days ago and brought them to its base. And apparently, there are people other than them being controlled. There were a couple of times when I got my consciousness back, usually when there's no orders or when I try to go against the orders, and sometimes even in cases other than those. In the end, I couldn't escape, but I did manage to see another person. Barak, before we were caught, we came across a 2-man party being attacked by 7 masked adventurers. We saw both groups when we were finally caught, but it turns out all of them, the people being attacked and the people attacking, were being manipulated. Nell, we tried to save the 2 adventurers when we saw them under attack, but then that bony bastard came out of nowhere and attacked us. Oslo, so there's still at least 10 people still being manipulated. In any case, our circumstances are really similar. A group of adventurers under distress as bait, then a surprise attack from the lick while in the middle of trying to help. Has that lick been doing this for a long time? When I said that, Oslo-san agreed. That's probably it. After all, we were also turned into decoys after falling into a trap. Oslo, his face twisted and his nails buried into his hands as he spoke with regret. The other 4 seemed to share his regret. Did they? Did you end up baiting someone else before meeting us? Ryalma, it's painful, but it's something that needs to be confirmed, so I steeled myself to ask. No one said anything. Oslo-san just nodded his head. Do you remember how many members their party had? Ryalma, 5. There's no mistaking it. Oslo, I remember them too. Everyone was around the age of my daughter. I didn't want to, none of us did, but we couldn't resist the spell. After that, I don't know what happened to them. Nell, when we finally came to our senses, they were gone. None of us could remember what exactly happened, so there wasn't anything we could do. It would be great if they managed to escape, but no, rather than worrying about them, there are still others alive. We have to send someone to cough. Barak, please have some water. Elia, sorry. Barak, having gotten too heated, Barak-san ended up choking. Elia quickly gave him a glass of water to drink. Barak-san realized how poorly he was behaving when she did, so he quickly changed his behavior, and then Elia went back quietly to a corner in the dimension home. After that, the other 4 girls stood alert, ready to provide water and a towel at a moment's notice. Ramiri Neeson and I can cast healing magic and undo curses, but I'm sure they want to help too somehow. Our discussion ended after I asked them about the location of the Lick's headquarters. We then removed their cuffs and left Ramiri Neeson and Elia's group in the dimension home to nurse them, while the other adults and I left. The first one to leave was me, then Shiva-san, then Rainbow-sama, and when the coast was clear, Sebasu-san finally stepped out. No one can tell what's going on outside while inside a dimension home, so it's important to be cautious. Moreover, while the magic itself is convenient should the caster die, the contents of the spell can never again be taken out. So although unlikely, we made sure that the coast was clear before letting Sebasu-san step out. After all, if something were to happen to him, that's 17 people who won't be seeing the light of day again. I shall focus on casting magic, so please keep an eye out. Sebasu, we all nodded to Sebasu. There was a chance that the undead could appear at our destination, so the 3 of us, me, Rainbow-sama, and Shiva-san, turned our backs to Sebasu-san as he invoked his space magic to teleport us. Volume 5, Chapter 22. The Man Picked Up by the Gods. Volume 5, Chapter 22. After returning to town through space magic, we split into 2 groups. Paying the magic jewel tax to the gatekeepers and reporting to the guild would take a lot of time, so the other group split off from us to bring the weakened to Nell's Inn. Fortunately, Oslo-san wasn't that weakened. He was up and running as soon as he got a drink of the potion Ramiri Neeson gave me. He also personally asked to come, as he was the leader of their group. I didn't mind since I also preferred having someone who actually saw what happened come with me to explain. Passing through the clamor and food of the many restaurants and stalls, against the flow of people coming back home from work, we headed to the Adventurers Guild. When we entered the guild, we saw a lot of people preparing to go home. It was that time of day. I really don't want to do this, but it's an emergency. There's a B-rank magical beast out there, and at least 10 people still kept prisoners. I have to report this even by force. But just as I resolved myself to do so and stepped toward that line of people preparing to go home, Oslo-san, the young female receptionist, raised her voice, and all eyes gathered on me and Oslo-san. Then that young woman left her pose to wade through the crowd of adventurers and reach us. "Are you all right? Where are your members?" Female receptionist. "We ran into some problems, but we're all safe. We want to make an emergency report regarding what happened." "Oslo, I understand. Please make the report inside, and this is," female receptionist. "He's the one who saved us." "Oslo, I see. Then please come together." Female receptionist. After being brought to the quest room, the supervisor in charge of the reception greeted us. We explained everything to him, from Oslo's group being caught until the part where brought them back to town. "I understand the situation. Please wait a moment." Supervisor, the man left for a moment, but he came back in less than 5 minutes with a rolled-up paper in his hands. There were some points that concerned me. That lick was situated in a fortress surrounded by walls of stone, you say, supervisor, and the size of the fortress is about 2 or 3 normal-sized houses. The walls seemed particularly well built. Oslo, does he know something? The man abruptly spread the paper over the desk. It was a map. The man pointed to a certain area. "Is this the fortress you're talking about, supervisor?" Oslo-san answered after thinking about it. "Most likely. We were searching around that area when we were caught, and we shouldn't have walked that much before reaching the fortress." Oslo-san circled his finger on the area where he and his group were searching. The area the man was pointing to was slightly deeper into the canyon from the center, while Oslo-san and his group were almost right at the center. "That area is near the area I was frolicking in search of magic jewels. If so, then the presence I felt then must have been that lick. When I shared that experience with the other 2 men, they concluded that the supervisor's hypothesis was probably correct." "Did you know there was a fortress around here?" Ryalma, when I asked that, the man made a pensive face. "Back when we just started to find large numbers of magic jewels, the feudal lord in charge of this region sent an expedition to investigate the area. It was then that we found out that there was a base nearby." "Was a base?" Ryalma past tense. "An order was given to destroy that base so as to keep the undead from settling in it. I thought you might have been referring to a different place, so I wanted to confirm it." Supervisor, the lick ran away as soon as its surprise attack failed. "It won't start thinking of using the people it's caught to heal itself, right? The possibility is real, though. Information on the enemy's base is a huge help. Thank you. The guild shall inform the adventurers on this matter as soon as possible. Is there anything else I can help you with?" "Supervisor, it'll take some time to muster a force to help the prisoners. He probably won't be able to answer even if I ask him how long it would take." "Oh, right. I have something else to report. A matter aside from the lick." "Ryalma, let's hear it then. Did something unusual occur?" "Supervisor, we stayed in the canyon for about a week. During that time, I found 5 of the people in the missing person list zombified. There's nothing of particular note in the canyon aside from the unusually high number of undead. More interestingly, I found an odd fish during our stay in the canyon." "Ryalma, the missing adventurers and a fish. Those certainly are new information." Can you tell me the details? Supervisor, I don't mind, but Ryoma I took out the report on the fish and the missing people and handed it to the supervisor. I'm sure you're busy with everything going on, so I've taken the time to write everything here. Ryoma, you're well prepared. Thank you for taking the time to write a written report. Supervisor, the man seemed surprised when he saw the written report. Most adventurers reported orally, very few reported in writing. In fact, I've never seen anyone hand a written report. But then again, all I really did was submit the writings I used to organize my thoughts that also happened to be a report anyway. Let's go ahead and submit those fish I caught as samples. I took out the box filled with that fish from my dimension home and was about to hand them. But because the man screamed upon seeing them, the guards of the guild entered, and a commotion ensued. He was just taken aback by how weird the fish was, so the commotion was settled not long after. It will take a while to decide how much the reward will be, so I won't get my reward until later. After that, we left the guild. Take Bayashi-sama, supervisor, or at least we were supposed to, but then the man stopped me and bowed deeply. Apparently, he wanted to thank me for saving Oslo's group. Oslo-san waited outside while I spoke with the man. We kept things short so as to not make Oslo-san wait too long. I found out that among the requests Oslo's group had taken, some were from relatives who wanted to find their missing relatives, but couldn't because they didn't know how to fight. The requests they'd posted were cheaper than other requests as they were mere search missions. Moreover, with the town brimming with magic jewels, there were lots of requests to dig out magic jewels that paid a lot, leaving low-paying search requests to rot on the postings. This resulted in friction between those who wanted their relatives found and the Adventurers Guild. It was thanks to Oslo's group that issue was settled. If it weren't for them, the guild would have suffered much losses. I'm also one of those people who posted a request. I am deeply grateful for their efforts. Supervisor, so this man was one of their clients. After I thanked the man, I left the guild with Oslo-san. Oslo-san led me to Nelson's inn. We're supposed to meet Elia's group anyway, and I'm also concerned about how the other members are doing. We walked briskly through the town, stopping at a house in the northwest part of town. Is this the inn? Ryoma, the house was built in a similar fashion as those around it, the sort of fashion that made one wonder if it was built with the stones of Troll Canyon. It stood 2 stories high and a sign was written above the door. It read, Rough-Toe Inn. To the side of the door was another sign that indicated if there were rooms available. Now, I know this is rude, but frankly speaking, if it weren't for the sign, I wouldn't have been able to tell this house an inn. At most, I would have thought it a bigger house. There is an extension to the house, however, and a closer look shows that it's longer than it appears, but that's not something you can tell when looking at it from in front. Opening the wooden door to enter the inn, an inverted L-shaped counter greeted us. There was no receptionist, so Oslo-san rang the small bell above the counter. I heard the sound of a door opening and closing from the stairs to the left of the counter. That must be an employee coming down to greet us. It was then that it finally occurred to me. This inn was built much like a house. Even its interiors were decorated so, as the supposed reception area felt less like a hotel's and more the entryway of a simple house's. I kept thinking of a hotel when I heard inn, but now that I've gone here it feels a lot closer to a guest house. This is good too in its own way. Ah, Oslo-san, sorry for making you wait. While I was caught up with my thoughts on the inn's design, a slender man called out to Oslo-san. His eyes opened wide upon seeing me and he quickly climbed down the stairs to hold my hand. You must be the person who saved my wife. Thank you so much. The sudden turn of events left me mildly confused, but it didn't take long for me to understand what was going on. Oslo-san further explained when I looked at him. I think you figured it out already, but this man here is Nell's husband. Oslo, oh, pardon me. My name is Heckard, Nell's husband. I believe you must be Take Bayashi-sama. My wife and your friends have filled me in on the details. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Take Bayashi-sama. Heckard, his smile was full of relief as he thanked me for the last time. The lick case was far from over, but seeing someone this happy makes all that trouble of saving them worth it. After that, Also-san went to the room his members were staying, while I met up with Elia's group who had gone here ahead of me. We sat in a corner of the guest room that was also being used as a dining hall to exchange information. We decided to accept Heckard's offer to stay at the inn. Then we started to discuss our course of action regarding the lick. Obviously, we need to get rid of that lick as soon as possible. Shiva, I agree. We can't leave a lick that's using a curse of obedience walking around, all the more so when there are yet people under its control. Ramiri, the former knight commander and a former royal court magician, both currently S-rank adventurers. But though they've long retired from their duties, the missions they took still focused on altruism than profit. I figured they wouldn't let that lick off. Looks like I was right. I turned to Rainbow-sama and Sebasu-san next. Let me come too. We managed to save Oslo's group just now thanks to the food and water we had, but they were definitely weakened. What more those people who are yet under the lick's grasp? We need to save them before it's too late. Let me come, I'll be plenty of help. Rainbow, sorry for the trouble. Shiva, it's fine. Rainbow-sama and Shiva-san seem to have some sort of tacit understanding. How about you, Ryoma-chan? Ramiri, of course I'll come. Ryoma, if the four of them are going, then I'll go too. Putting it that way might seem like I can't think for myself, but there's a reason behind it. The lick can use the spell Hide to erase its presence. Moreover, it has at the very least 10 people under its control. With those cards under its sleeves, attacking alone is foolish. After all, a surprise attack followed by a curse of obedience would be game over right there and then. The grave slimes can't absorb those humans the lick has control of either. The risk is really too high for me to go by myself. That being said though, we definitely can't take Elia and the other girls with us. We all turned our gazes to the young girls. They all tacitly understood what it was we were saying, and they all nodded. Although it was only for a short time, they did also face the lick, so it seems they could come to terms with it. It's vexing, but there's nothing else to it when you lack the strength. Then the time for supper came and other guests started arriving. Eyes started to gather on Ramiri-Nisan and Shiva-san, so we put off supper for another time. Ryoma-chan, can I have a moment with you? Ramiri, yes, what is it? Ryoma, I was planning on passing the time feeding the shadow slimes, but then Ramiri-Nisan called out to me in front of the stairs. She invited me to her room. Looks like she wants to talk about something that can't be said to others, so I put up a sound-concealing barrier too. You can talk now. Ryoma, thank you, Ryoma-chan. Do you have the anti-curse magic tool with you? Ramiri, I still have the magic tool for return curse that I bought back when I started learning about curses in my item box, but from your face, I suppose you have it but haven't been using it lately, huh? Ramiri, right. It was fine back when I first bought it, but nowadays it's just better for me to use my own magic. Ryoma, I know. I saw you cast it myself. Ramiri, ah, right. Then let's get to the point. Would you be interested in a powerful magic tool? Ramiri, a powerful magic tool. Considering who we'll be fighting, of course I want one, but can we even procure such a tool? Ryoma, only a handful of magic tool artisans can create an anti-curse magic tool. On top of that, the nobles are constantly fighting for those few products, leading to exorbitant prices. Even the magic tool I have was ordered by Surge-san, and while its effects were only somewhat on the high side, the price still reached 700,000 suits. There's no way we could easily get something better than wait. You have one, don't you? Ryoma, nope, but there's a chance to get one, with the 5 of us, that is. Ramiri, you're not thinking of something dangerous, right? Like something illegal, Ryalma, no worries on that end. But it will be a bit troublesome if the nobles or the magic tool artisans catches wind of what we're doing. And besides, it's not guaranteed that we actually could get one. Ramiri, in other words, it's fine as long as keep it a secret, huh? Ryalma, yes Tilda, it'll be fine as long as no one finds out. Ramiri, I'd rather not get involved with anything annoying, but if procuring such a tool means lowering the mission's risk, then. So, what's the plan? Ryalma, her response was Volume 5, Chapter 23, we'll need Kanan-chan's help since we'll be making it together. Ramiri, when I asked Ramir Neeson what her plan was, that was her response. Now I know Kanan can imbue magic tools with other people's magic, but you know it won't work unless she's compatible with the person, right? Ryalma, I know. That's why I told you we might not succeed. But you know, if it's you, then I think it's doable. I don't have much of a basis for it, but you know that Kanan-chan can make a magic tool with Aaliyah-chan, right? Ramiri, right. Kanan did mention that the bracelet she's using is a magic tool she created with Elia. Right. Ryalma, and this isn't directly related, but among my coworkers back at the palace was a royal court magician who could create and maintain magic tools. According to that person, the first people who could use enchant magic was a child of God. Ramiri, the founder of enchantment, is an otherworlder. Really, Ryalma, that's one explanation. Unfortunately, it wasn't until many generations later that enchantment magic started to spread. There aren't a lot of documents about that person, and his existence is apparently something closer to a rumor than fact. But there's more to it. Ramiri I listened closely to Ramiri Neeson. As the story goes, it turns out that the child of God who might have been an enchanter had a follower who helped him create magic tools. As it turns out, that follower was also apparently a child of God. Ramiri, the follower too, Ryalma right. But unlike his master who could only enchant, the follower was blessed with the power to use all sorts of magic. For the record, there are other stories too where there were two children of God in the same era. Ramiri, there was also that story about the otherworlder who became this country's king and the otherworlder who became a hero. Two children of God, one era. Two possible children of God worked together to create a magic tool. And now someone with the talent and disposition like Kanan-chan was able to make one with Aaliyah-chan, who has a child of God's blood running through her veins. A method to create magic tools that can only work with another compatible person. Moreover, the requirements for that compatibility is exceedingly hard to meet. Don't you think that the reason why it's so hard to find someone compatible might be because it's a method that could only work with another child of God? Ramiri, the logic. I can follow, but when you think about it, the only people who can enchant are those who have the blood of an enchanter, right? I'm pretty sure I heard something like that before. Ryalma, right. There's that story too. The number of enchanters have been increasing lately, so it's no surprise for nobles to start asking where they were born. The magic really might be inherited. Ramiri, that is probably the case. Ryalma, it might be worth trying out. But if that's the case, then I might have to reveal my identity as a child of God. It wouldn't be right to just ask her to try without any reason why I think it might succeed. And if we're working together, we'll have to discuss the risks too, or it'll be bad after we do create a magic tool. Ryalma, if we're doing it, then we might as well do it consensually. So what are you going to do, Ramiri? I'll tell her. Ryalma, that was my conclusion after thinking about it. You sure? Ramiri, if it was just someone you introduced to me, I'd refuse, but I know Kanan, so it's all right. Let's tell the other girls too. If it's them, then I don't mind. I trust them. And besides, Kanan is a horrible liar, so we might as well get this out of the way. Ryalma, she might try to protect my secret, but she's not really good at lying. And I'm sure Elia and the others would be curious if I ask her help. Of course, they won't pursue the matter much if Kanan doesn't want to talk, but then the atmosphere between them will become tense. If it's those girls, I'm sure it'll be fine. Besides, Elia will find out about it one day anyway. The rest of her family already know about it. After that, we discussed up to how much we should talk about and what kind of magic to imbue the magic tool with. During that discussion, someone knocked hard on the door. "What's up?" Ryalma finally. "Conan, we've been calling you since a while ago, so we thought you weren't in." Michelle, when I opened the door, Conan and Michelle were standing right outside. I suppose it was Conan knocking. "Sorry about that. We had a barrier up so we couldn't hear." Ramiri Neeson said as she came up from behind. "What in the world is a man and a woman doing in a small room with a sound-concealing barrier?" "Michelle, I hope you're not thinking of anything strange. We were just discussing how to defeat the lick." "Ryalma, well, it is you were talking about, so I suppose that aside." "Michelle, there aren't a lot of people in the dining hall now, so one of the servants came to ask if we're going to eat. It was looking pretty bad, though." "Conan, looks like our talk lasted a lot longer than I thought." "Him looking bad? People were pestering Shiva-san a while ago." "Conan, word of the lick has apparently already gotten around and lots of adventurers have started coming, asking Shiva-san to fight with them. Heckard tried to stop them, but they wouldn't let up. In the end, the adventurers even started to cause a ruckus." "Michelle, so they called us just in case." The other three, Elia, Miyabi, and Riera, apparently went to call Sibsusan and Rainbox-sama. Now that they mention it, it sure is noisy downstairs. Putting our talk for later, Ramiri Neeson and I came downstairs where a furious voice shook the inn. "Enough! Yuwo! Who was that? Shiva-san. Wow, he looks mad. Wanting to work with me is one thing, but causing trouble for the inn uninvited is not. And to think you would even raise your hand against a mere citizen. What is wrong with you?" Shiva, looking through the opening in the crowd of people, I saw Heckard-san bleeding from the corner of his mouth. I saw the servants help him back up before the opening closed. From the attire these people are wearing, it seems everyone here is an adventurer. There's 12 of them all in all. Shiva-san's earlier yell seems to have left them as meek as lambs. But the enemy is a lick. That's a B-rank magical beast." "Adventurer 1, exactly. We need to get rid of it before anyone else gets hurt. That's why we came here, to ask you to lend us your strength, so Adventurer 2, I refuse. I've already explained why many times, or do you still not understand? Shiva, you're going with your friends, right? Then let me come too. It'll be better with more people." Adventurer 2, unfortunately, that didn't last long as some persistent adventurer lit the flame anew. That fire spread until it eventually reached me. "Ah, that's him. That's the guy traveling with the former Knight Commander." Adventurer 3, the man in front of the group, did a double take when he saw me, then he yelled that out, causing the rest of the adventurers to turn toward me. Damn. That Baldy with his loose lips and that twisted timing. I ended up glaring at him because of that. "Are you sure this is the guy?" Adventurer 4, wow, he's young. I definitely have more experience than him. Adventurer 5, he probably has skill to show for since the former Knight Commander is taking him along, but Adventurer 6, and now they're saying whatever they want. Well, it is true I'm not even past 20, so I am pretty young for a B-rank adventurer. You said you have people you're going with, and it turns out to be some kid. You're better off with someone like me than that." Adventurer 7, that one sneered when he looked at me, then he started to try and convince Shiva-san. "Oi, you." Adventurer 8, don't try to get an inch over us. Adventurer 9, we're definitely better than that guy. Adventurer 10, we have more experience than some greenhorn kid. Adventurer 11, the moment one of them made a move, the rest followed. I ran into people like these a lot when I was under the influence of the Demon King's fragment, and I've sort of gotten used to dealing with them. "What did you say about me?" Ryalma, eek. Adventurer 12, my voice, brimming with magic power, blew away the fight from the noisy adventurers, and their bodies shook as if cold water had been poured over them. Some of them fell down and some turned around, their faces pale. Ah, Tilda, was that a bit much? Perhaps just the pressure or the cursed song would have been enough, but whatever. If I don't go this far, the noisy ones among them won't shut up and they won't listen. Shiva-san's earlier yell didn't work either, so it should be fine. Besides, it's not like they're dying or anything. You people are causing quite the ruckus, you know. Do you perhaps need help or something? Ryalma Enno. Adventurer 1. That's. Adventurer 2. From what I've gathered, it seems you'll be taking my place against the lick. Ryalma, my voice, brimming with magic power, fanned their fears as I slowly yet carefully interrogated them. Though terrified, they tried to justify their earlier actions. Don't get mad. We were desperate, you know. We just wanted to share fortune with the Knight Commander. Adventurer 3, alright, we just slipped a bit. Sorry if it seems like we were making a fool out of you. Adventurer 4, seems. Oh, I'm fairly sure you were, in fact, making a fool out of me. Ryalma, I spoke more and more as I pointed out various petty points, and when I'd finally pushed them into a corner, Shiva-san spoke. Unfortunately, you people just aren't strong enough for us to trust our backs to. Shiva, those words blew the last of the ebbing ember, and the adventurers all apologized. Heckard-san warned them that the guards would be involved should something similar happen again, and they all left, afraid. Surprisingly, most of those people weren't even guests. We let out a breath of relief when the last person finally left. Dear guests, please accept my apology for this disturbance. Heckard, it's not your fault, Heckard Dono. The one who should be apologizing is me, since I'm the one who caused this whole mess. Shiva, thank you, hearing that puts me at ease. I shall prepare your supper then, please just wait for a moment. Heckard, before that we should heal you. Heal, Ryalma. Heckard-san apologized to Shiva-san and me. I healed him before letting him go. His lips were cracked and his face was swelling a bit, so a single cast of heal should immediately fix him up. He thanked me before leaving to prepare our supper. That was a mess. Ryalma, it happens a lot. Sorry for getting you involved. Shiva, I don't really mind. I'm also used to it. So this happens a lot. Ryalma, this bad is rare, but yes. People who want me as their master, people who want to join my party, all sorts. Shiva Ramiri Nisan joined in the conversation while Shiva-san was talking. Behind her were Kanan and Michelle. Further behind were Sebasu-san, Rainbox-sama, and the three girls who called them. Just where and what were these people doing all this time? It would have been bad if they saw me too, so I used hide to run away. Sorry for leaving everything to you. Ramiri, so that's what. Well, they did react like that just seeing me. After that, we sat ourselves at a corner of the now empty dining hall and talked about what had happened before we arrived. It turns out everything was just a series of unfortunate events. Shiva-san had gone to the dining hall ahead of us, only to end up meeting an adventurer who had forgotten his belongings, who then turned out to be one of Shiva's diehard fans. That was all it took to start a fire, apparently, as people suddenly started crowding him, some of which were the people who wanted to join his party. It seems Shiva-san and Ramiri Nisan being here has already become a rumor in the town. According to Shiva-san, most of those pushy people weren't actually B rank in ability, but C rank. And what they really wanted to do was to fight with Shiva-san, defeat the Lick, and perhaps continue to journey together and gather achievements, so they could eventually be promoted. Apparently, stuff like this started happening ever since Shiva became an adventurer. Normally, he just refuses, but the group this time just wouldn't take no for an answer. And eventually, the fans and the people wanting to join with Shiva started arguing, one of which started accusing the other of just wanting to bask in Shiva-san's glory. Heckard-san tried to stop them, but being a lone man who was also weaker than them, he was pushed aside. This led to Shiva-san to finally lose his temper, and he yelled at them. I don't mind grouping up with someone, but people like those are no good. Shiva, someone understanding would be nice. Ramiri, fame has its own problems too, I see. Ryalma Rainbox-sama suddenly remembered something, so he asked me. Speaking of which, Ryalma-kun, just how many of your slave demons can participate in the Lick hunt? Rainbok. There's 1 mimic slime and emperor grave slime. There's 1,000 for the metal and iron slimes. 100 for the scavenger slimes. 10 for the shadow slimes and the other elemental slimes. In total, if you count the emperor grave slimes as 10,000 grave slimes, then that's 12,231 slimes all in all. Oh, and there's the 8 Rimmel birds. Ryalma, my dimension home, is already full of slimes, so I left the sticky slimes and acid slimes to watch the house back in Gimyuru. I left Rai too because of the narrow road and the stiff cliffs, as he wouldn't be able to move much, which is why the number ended up becoming like that. It would be great if I could learn the advanced spell, Another World, soon. After that, supper came, so we put off all the gloomy and dangerous stories for later. Our supper consisted of bread, stew, salad, and a big, fat, delicious steak. To make things even better, we could eat as much as we wanted. Volume 5, Chapter 24. After a hearty meal fit for an adventurer's inn, I waited for Rimiri-san and the rest of the girls in my room. We could not talk about the magic tools there in the dining hall, so we had to wait until after, when they could speak in private, to bring it up. After waiting for a while, I heard the footsteps of 6 people approaching. They were here. Ryalma-san, are you in? Elia. When the footsteps stopped, the person behind the door knocked 4 times, then I heard Elia's voice. I invited them all in as I opened the door. There were 6 of them all in all, and with me, there were 7 of us in the room. That's a lot of people for just one room, so it came as no surprise that we all felt cramped. To make things more comfortable, we decided to use my dimension home instead. No one can hear what we're talking about inside, and there'll be way more space to move around in too. Though it's certainly not that spacious anymore. Wow, Miyabi, like 80 to 90% of this whole place is slime. Riera. There was a hint of both shock and admiration when they muttered that. Incidentally, the remaining 10% of the place was taken up by preserved food, tools for making medicine, weapons, and armors. Anyway, let's go sit somewhere. I ordered the slimes to make way for us. Then I distributed floor cushions made out of the fluff slimes fluff for us to sit on. After that, I made tea for everyone, and Rimiri-Nisan and I talked to the girls about why we think I might be able to make a magic tool with Kanan. And of course, we told them that I'm a child of God. And that about sums it up. Rimiri, the girls, sensing the atmosphere around me, and Rimiri-Nisan, the girls kept quiet despite the surprising news of my being a child of God. They kept quiet until the end, not interjecting even once. If there's something I can do to help, then by all means, please. Kanan, the first one to break the silence, was Kanan. You sure? Ryalma, you did go out of your way to tell me everything, and I also want to help defeat the Lick, and more than anything, if there's anything that might allow me to create a magic tool, then by all means. And while I'm surprised to hear that Ryalma-kun is a child of God, Kanan looked to the other girls sitting nearby, and they all nodded with a smile on their faces. We're surprised, of course, but when you think about it, all makes sense. Elia, like how many slimes you have contracted or how strong you are, and all those crazy stuff you do. But when it turns out that you're actually a child of God, then it finally clicks like, so that's why, Michelle. Besides, we've all gotten used to it by now, you being out of the norm, that is. Riera, it was a bit disappointing that they weren't all that surprised, but Rimiri-Nisan was just, that makes everything easier then, and pushed us to hurry up and try make that magic tool. I'll be in your care then. Ryalma, same here. Khan and I asked what we needed to do. And it turns out that we just have to prepare the weapon to imbue my magic into, and then for me to use my magic. Since you're doing this to subjugate a monster, then I recommend using an accessory. It won't get in the way of your hands, and you can attach it easily to your body. Kanan, then let's go with that. Ryalma, so I took out the ring and the necklace I made from working on my engraving skills from my item box. To raise the quality, we should use something that was made with silver or gold. Kanan, Silver and gold, huh? If you're just looking for a better conduit of magic power, then I have some mithril or orichalcum. I had some leftover material after forging some weapons with them, so I used them to make 3 simple rings. When I showed those rings to Conan, she sighed. The best material there's ever been. But you know it would be nice if you refrained from taking out something like that like you would a piece of candy, because I'm seriously starting to question my common sense. Conan, apparently, the reason she suggested to use gold or silver was because magic tool artisans normally can't get any mithril or orichalcum. Can we use these for our first magic tool? Ryalma, no problem. Conan magic tools are usually referred to as just magic tools, as if they were all made the same way, but there are actually various ways to make one. The method we're going to use this time is the easiest and most popular method. Let's put the mithril and orichalcum for later, and start out with something simple. Conan appeared nervous as she lifted up the gold ring among the accessories I'd taken out. She placed the ring on the palm of her right hand and brought her hand toward me. When I give the signal, use the water magic water over the ring. Conan magic power began to emanate from her left hand as she said that. That magic power gathered into a lump of magic over the ring, then a part of it stretched and wrapped itself around the ring. It didn't feel ominous or anything, but it looked like a curse. Looking around, Elia and the other girls looked at Conan with seemingly praying eyes. Then the signal came. Water, Ryalma. I used water just as she told me, but no water appeared over the ring. The magic power is, Ryalma. I could feel Conan's magic power wrapping around mine, stopping the spell just before it invocated. And as that magic power passed through Conan's, it flowed into the ring. It was just like a funnel pouring medicine into a vial. When my magic power made contact with the ring, a blue light began to emanate from the ring, and it gradually grew brighter. It was at that moment that I realized that the founder of enchantment was truly an otherworlder, because that light was the same light I saw whenever I went to the divine realm or came back, or when I used alchemy. Did some god make enchantment too? And did the otherworlder anger the gods? Because I can't imagine them including some demerit of being unable to use any magic other than enchantment. As my thoughts began to digress, the light emanating from the ring sparkled beautifully. With a face full of resolve, Conan put the ring on her right index finger and allowed her magic power to flow into it. When she did, a small amount of water appeared which she stopped with her left hand. It worked. It really worked, Conan. Then we should be able to make an anti-curse magic tool, right? Ryalma, yes. Conan, great. With this we can guarantee a safe hunt. Just finding someone like Elia with whom she could create a magic tool with was plenty miraculous. She did not think she would find another such person. After that we created 10 more magic tools out of the spells, return curse and dispel, creating enough for everyone. Thank you, Conan-chan. Ramiri, I'm glad I was able to help. And more than anything, I'm glad I was able to touch a material I've only seen in books. It was a great experience. So, thank you, Conan. After Conan bowed deeply, our business for the day was over. Then let's go back and rest. Make sure to keep all of this a secret, all right? It would be troublesome if the other nobles caught wind of Ryum-chan and Conan-chan being able to mass-produce the otherwise rare magic tools. Ramiri, Elia and the others made a stern expression as they again promised to protect the secret. Satisfied with their response, Ramiri Neeson hugged the one with the grimmest expression of them all, Riera, and patted Elia on the head as she told them not to worry. It'll be fine. Shiva-chan and Rainbok-chan know about this too, so if anyone ever asks you about those magic tools, you can just bring up the name of the Jamal family, mine, or Shiva-chan's, and say that you don't know anything since you were just given the tools. As for the details, just make up a story you all know, like the tools being a family heirloom or something. The girls' faces lightened up when Ramiri Neeson reassuringly said that. She tends to be really touchy, but that reassuring atmosphere of hers is really something. After that we left the dimension home, and all the girls, including Ramiri Neeson, went back to their own rooms. Phew, Ryalma, with everyone gone, there was nothing left to do. I could just go and sleep like this, but I don't feel sleepy at all. Trying to forcefully sleep at times like these is usually a waste of time. I wonder if there's something I could do to pass the time. It's not that late. The early ones are probably at bed already, but people who work at bars are still working around this time. I don't really feel like going to a bar, though. Oh, speaking of which, Heckard-san just left after he said he would prepare our supper, and we never got to talk about the reparations for the trouble caused by the adventurers. There's nothing else to do, so I might as well ask. After making sure that I was wearing clothes fit for going outside, I filled a small bag with money and left the room. When I got downstairs, I saw Heckard-san working at the books in the counter by the entrance. Heckard-san, Ryalma, take Bayashi-sama. Is there anything I can help you with? Heckard, actually, I wanted to talk about what happened to your cheeks. Ryalma, Heckard-san didn't notice me until I called out to him. Then, because the room was dark, the only source of light being some candles, I didn't notice it right away, but there was a compress plastered onto one of his cheeks. I healed his wounds earlier already, and the side it's plastered on is the other side, so that shouldn't be it. Could it be that when you got hit, you Ryalma? No, please don't misunderstand. Heckard-san replied in a panic. My wife did this. Heckard, your wife? You mean Nelson? Ryalma, when she found out what happened, she told me I should have called her. She says it's the duty of the wife to stop quarrels between adventurers. Heckard, so that's why. Well, Heckard-san does seem pretty weak. Also, please don't worry about the reparations. This inn is frequented by adventurers, so we're no stranger to such quarrels. Besides, I was the one who asked everyone to stay here. I couldn't possibly ask you to pay. Heckard, I see. Ryalma, he beat me to the point. Gardek-sama also dropped by a while ago, and he gave me permission to put up a sign that says, the inn where the former Knight Commander stayed, in exchange for the payment. That's more than I could ask for. Heckard, so that's how Shiva dealt with the situation after seeing money wasn't going to be accepted. I'm not sure how much of an effect that will have, but it should akin to a really famous celebrity giving his sign for the store to show off. It wouldn't do to force the issue, but I think I can give them something else to thank them. But then, just as I was about to open my dimension home, I realized something. Won't they just end up hating me if I actually give them that fish? As that thought was running through my mind, Heckard-san spoke. Is something the matter? Heckard, Oh, I was thinking of giving Nelson this delicious fish I caught from the canyon, but it looks pretty bad appearance-wise, so I was wondering whether it would just cause you trouble. Ryalma, a fish, you say? Heckard, when I said that, Heckard-san showed interest. Do you like fishes? Ryalma, yes. I used to eat a lot when I was still peddling. I'd love to eat fresh fish again, actually. Heckard, it's fresh, but it looks weird. Ryalma, if you don't mind, then I'd love to have a taste. Heckard, are you sure? Everyone I showed it to before has hated it. Ryalma, I'm sure I won't mind a little ugly on the outside. I've always been good with stuff like that. Heckard-san led me into the kitchen, where I took out the fish from my dimension home. This is... Heckard, when Heckard-san saw the fish, his eyes opened wide. He's not eating it, is he? But no, Heckard, is what I thought at first, but then it seems he's really scrutinizing the fish. Are you all right? Ryalma, yes, I've seen plenty of stuff like this when I was a kid. Heckard, he's seen a fish like this before. When I asked him that, he happily answered. Apparently, when he was a kid, there were plenty of fishes like this one in one of the caves of Troll Canyon. Troll Canyon did not have a lot of undead back then, and Heckard-san worked as a garbage man, who would frequently go to the canyon to throw away the trash. That cave was near the place where he and his coworkers threw the trash, so his seniors would usually take him there. If you go deep into the cave, You'll find a place with a vast pool of water where you can find fishes like this one. There's just one thing, though. Back then, I'm pretty sure those fishes didn't have such sharp teeth, and I'm also pretty sure they were really small, about this much. Heckertson showed the size with his right hand's index and thumb finger. It was really small. At most, it would only be as big as the palm of one's hands. That sure is small, Ryalma, indeed. And there were so many of them crawling under the water that you couldn't see them. We got chills when we saw that back at that cave. The kids nowadays, or the people that came from elsewhere, don't know about that, though. The cave itself wasn't dangerous, as there weren't any beasts back then and it had only one path, so you couldn't even get lost, but kids frequented it. And so, for some reason, some parents thought it too dangerous to let children frolic at a place like that, so they sealed up the entrance. I was one of the kids who played there when I felt like playing adventurer, so I remember the place well. Heckard, so that sort of thing happens even in another world. After that, Heckardson taught me how to prepare and eat the fish. I'll be going then. Ryalma, please have a good night's rest. Not just today, but if possible, please visit us whenever you drop by this town. I'll do my best to ensure that we prioritize you. Heckard, I couldn't help but ask when I noticed how good he was treating us. Is it really all right to treat us so favorably? Ryalma, yes. I cannot thank you all enough for what you've done for us. I couldn't take it if my wife left me too. Heckard too? Oh right, Nelson went with Oslo-san because her daughter went missing. Obviously, her daughter would also be Heckard's daughter. I didn't know how to reply to his smile, so I just bowed and left. I've only seen that lick once, but I'll definitely defeat him. Silently, I resolved myself to defeat the lick. It's the only thing I can do for them. TL note: slower chapter releases this week, as I'll be a bit busy. Volume 5, Chapter 25 the next day. By the time it was afternoon, the 5 of us each were riding on the back of an Ignis dragon with 8 Rimmel birds leading in front. We would be reaching the fortress where the lick was supposed to be in less than 5 minutes. I thought it would take us longer, to be honest. We're not going as fast as we could, as we're being wary of any possible surprise attacks, but the Ignis dragon and the Rimmel birds are still so fast. We specifically picked out a time unfavorable to the undead. This morning, after readying our equipment, we had a meeting. Then we left right after an early breakfast, but I didn't think we would actually arrive in less than an hour. I'm grateful for my allies. Their fire and wind magic whenever we encountered a battle was invaluable. Moreover, I hear Rainbow-sama has a magical beast under him that excels at detecting enemies. It's called Assassin Snake. With its help, we'll be able to find where the victims are. An excellent tool both for ambushing and defending against ambushes. We tested the magic tool I created with Conan before leaving, and we found out that it'll break after extended use, but it's newly built, so it probably won't fail us during some crucial moment. At least unless it gets destroyed. Oh. Shiva, the fortress is nowhere to be seen, but the Ignis dragons have already started to descend. Rainbow-sama seems to have ordered them to. Did something happen? Upon landing, I asked Shiva-san if something happened. The Ignis dragons saw the fortress on alert. It looks like some adventurers have attacked ahead of us. There were also 2 living wyverns and the corpse of a large bird-type magical beast you don't normally see around here. A saddle was attached on both of the wyverns, so an adventurer must have been controlling them. The area surrounding the fortress is crawling with undead, so the lick is definitely in the fortress. Shiva, it's common for a lick to use the undead, but to think it could also use wyverns. Rainbow, if it can control slave demons too, then the beasts on our side might end up under its control. Ramiri, high-ranked magical beasts and magical beasts with a lot of magic power have a natural resistance against contracts and curses. But yes, they might still end up controlled anyway. Rainbow, it seems the reason Rainbow-sama had us land was to discuss whether to continue with our plan or not. We discussed a bit after that, and in the end, we decided to revise the plan we made this morning. The original plan was to split into two groups, one land and one air. With me, my slimes, Shiva-san and Sebasu-san in the land group, while Rainbox-sama and his Ignis dragons would fight from the air with Rimiri-Nisan and the Rimmel birds. It was a plan we originally came up with in case the lick tried to run away by flying again, so this time we revised it to prioritize dealing with the wyverns. The slave demons would be fine as long as we found the lick first, and not give him the leeway to cast the curse of obedience. As for the undead, the grave slimes should be able to handle them. I'm sure not even the lick would have the magic power to try and usurp control over a horde of more than 10,000 slimes. After making those changes to our plan, we rode on the Ignis dragons and once again made way for the fortress. After flying for a while, a cliff that had been roughly leveled to create a crossroad came to view. At the center was an open space shaped like a deformed circle, outside of which was a wall that only reached up to one's hips. Beyond that wall were the castle walls, and then past that was a clumsily built one-story structure. The walls were made from the stones of the cliff. The stones used were not uniform, and each and every single one of them were littered with earth and sand all over. In contrast, the gate on the castle walls was cleanly built, and the undead could enter in and out as its two doors opened outwards. It's time, in that tense atmosphere, Rainbox-sama gave the signal to land, and those of us in the land group landed in one of the paths of the crossroad. The unfortunate undead in the landing zone were either roasted by the dragons or squashed upon landing, while the undead that didn't get killed sluggishly ran away from the place. Good. They're not attacking us. I quickly unfastened the metal fixtures needed to ride the dragons and got off. Everyone else aside from me, the dragons and the Rimmel birds included, were tensed and extremely wary. I took out the slimes from my dimension home, instantly filling the road extending to the fortress. Go! Ryalma. As soon as I gave the command, the iron and metal slimes jumped out to lead the charge, with the grave slimes following from behind. Among the slimes were also 120 magic-using slimes that were covered in metal slimes. The mimic slime was behind me, transformed in my figure, and equipped with an iron slime katana. As the horde of slimes pushed on, they turned into a wave of force that gradually took down the slow undead that couldn't run in time as they made way for the fortress. When we neared the fortress, I found some survivors. There's 3 of them in front. Rainbox-sama found some of the survivors, and he pointed them out from above. In front of me stood 3 men with expressionless faces just like Oslo-san and his group. They cut a road through the undead as they made their way toward us. When they got past the undead, they started cutting the iron slimes at the lead. When Sebasu-san saw that, he said, "They're attacking everything." Sebasu, I don't know what order they got, but they're attacking the zombies who should be their allies all the while, also attacking the slimes. But this isn't really the time to be wondering. Sebasu-san, Ryalma, it's ready. Sebasu, we decided beforehand to throw the survivors into Sebasu-san's dimension home after catching them, so I checked with Sebasu-san if he was ready. After hearing his response, I ordered the slime to open a path. Then I ran for the Adventurers Volume 5 Chapter 26 Kahui, Mind-Controlled Adventurer. With an incomprehensible shout, one of the adventurers brandished his sword and slashed down in a straight line. But I kept running at full speed, reaching up to his chest before he could fully slash down, and landed a blow onto his open side with my fist clad in poison magic. The man bent into a shape before falling to the ground and convulsing. As soon as he fell, 2 swords had reached for me from behind the now fallen man, but turning on my left heel, I easily avoided them. At the same time, I was able to grab the wrist and arm of the man who came at me from my left. Slightly stooping, I placed his elbow over my shoulder and broke his posture as I took him from the back. Then, as I stretched my legs, I pushed all of my weight onto the man, pushing his dominant arm opposite the direction it normally bent. The pain too great, the man had no choice but to let go of his sword, but I kept going until I clearly felt his bones snap. Then I kicked him towards Sebasu-san and Shiva-san before turning to face the next adventurer. This one came at me from right in front. He slashed down diagonally, and in response, I stepped forward and took his arm, taking it all the way to throw him on his back, where I landed the finishing blow. No more adventurers came after that, but when we reached the circular open space, something happened. Are they planning on holding up? Shiva, there were scores of undead, but just when we thought they would all come hoarding out of the fortress, the gate suddenly shut itself tight, and the undead that did get out before the gate closed only stood there to protect the gate. I also noticed the two wyverns flying in the sky, but that was Rainbow-sama's job. And he left with his two Ignis dragons as soon as he saw them. Leave the skies to me. The rest of the surviving adventurers are in the fortress. Rainbow, like that, Rainbow-sama set off to fight with the wyverns. It's more like a game of tag, though, with the wyverns lives on the line. Anyway, let's get to work. With this turn of events, the best course of action would be Shiva-san, Sebasu-san. Ryalma, right. Shiva, please leave it to us. Sebasu, leaving Shiva-san and Sebasu-san to stand watch. The slimes entered the open area and spread out into a fan as I ordered them to clear the undead. Then I used my earth magic to create a pillar of stone as thick as a log, with one end a slightly rounded stake and the other end flat. I attached handles to the center and fortified the stake part with the construction magic, hardening, then further reinforced the whole thing with Kai. We've already considered that the enemy might try to close the gate and hole up, so we thought up a plan during the meeting. According to Shiva-san, the best response in a scenario like this is none other than a battering ram. This was the best tool we could use considering our lack of manpower and time. It's ready, Ryalma, good. Do it just like we planned. Shvia, as Shiva-san said that, he stepped forward and fired off a spell of wind magic toward the area in front of the slimes. Storm Cutter. Shiva, the raging wind, blew countless blades into the surroundings, wreaking havoc upon the undead as they were minced to pieces. Even the fence and the castle walls didn't come out unscathed. By the time the storm of blades started to settle, over half of the undead were gone. This was where we came in. We cut down the remaining undead to cut open a path, while Sebasu-san protected our back as he followed from behind. Ramiri-Nisan also supported us from above, so it didn't take us long before we finally reached the gate. Now, having calculated the exact moment when the undead wouldn't be there to stop me, I overtook Shiva-san and used all of my strength to ram the battering ram into the gate. The giant rock of a stake slammed into the gate of the fortress, and the sound of something being crushed filled the area along with the sound of something creaking. Yet only a crack at most was left upon the fortress gate. But I already knew just one blow wouldn't be enough. Rocket punch, Ryalma gathering magic into a lump. I slammed that great power into the flat part of the battering ram to propel the ram forward. With my shoulder in place of the stand, the stake slammed into the gate a second time, just like an improvised pile bunker. Again, the sound of creaking and crushing resounded as the battering ram pierced the gate. I don't know whether the hinges were the first to break, but the gate slammed open, and the undead on the other side came flying as the battering ram penetrated into the fortress. Good. Shiva-san entered as soon as the gate broke open to cut down the undead, and I followed after him along with Sebasu-san, while the slimes split into two groups. One half dealt with the undead outside, while the other half dealt with those inside. But just as we were approaching the building where the adventurers were. Strange, Ryalma, you think so too? Shiva, yes. Ryama, the slimes were enough to deal with the undead, so it didn't matter even when they tried to chase us. What's weird is that the place seemed too quiet. Neither the lick nor the mind-controlled adventurers have made an appearance, yet there didn't seem to be any traps in sight either, even though we caused such a large ruckus breaking the gate like that. Not having to face much resistance is great, but on the other hand, it makes it seem more likely for there to be a trap, so we can't just carelessly enter the building. Just as I was thinking that Gyun Wyvern, the death throes of one of the two wyverns resounded high up in the skies. The both of them were roasted well done by the Ignis dragons, and apparently the other one couldn't even so much as scream in its last moments. As the two wyverns fell from the sky, they crashed into the castle walls, tumbling down into the ground as they left a mark upon the walls they sought to protect. Then it happened. Ryama, Shiva, Sabasu, I was not lax. I was carefully paying attention to all of our surroundings, but at that moment something still managed to grab my legs. When I looked down, what I saw was the white bone of an arm. The hand of a skeleton was for some reason sprouted from the ground. But that was not all, for there was an uncountable number of undead from within the fortress that, in no time at all, suddenly managed to surround us. Disgusting. Where are they coming from? I spat bitterly in my mind, but I didn't forget to react. Light magic clad around my legs to disperse the skeleton's arm wrapped around it. Shiva-san and Sebasu-san were also caught by their feet, but they managed to deal with the skeletons easily too. He's on the roof. Light shot. Remiri, as we looked up, we saw the lick on the rooftop battling with Remiri Nisan. Fall back, Shiva. Water cutter, Sebasu. Holy flame carpet, Ryama, we would only be in danger if we kept this up. And if things turned for the worse, we might even find ourselves caught. So I followed Shiva's command and casted my magic along with Sebasu-san. Then we all used our respective weapons to cut open a path out through the hordes of undead. I've already ordered the slimes beforehand to protect the gate in case of a situation like this. So why? Did the lick do this too? When we reached the fortress gate, the gate that should have been destroyed was standing there without a scratch, almost as if the time had been wound back. Volume 5, Chapter 27, with no time to deal with the gate that should have been destroyed. We huddled together at the center of the slime's encirclement and battled the undead. We struck them dead one after another, but they just kept coming no matter how many we killed. In fact, it felt like there are more of them now. I know it's a fantasy world here, but this is just crazy. An endless zombie mission. Give me a break. We're somehow holding up thanks to the slimes, but this is still the first time I've been pushed to my back by sheer number alone since coming to this world. What's going on outside? The mimic slime should be there. Linking my senses with the mimic slime battling outside, I found out that the slimes have overwhelmed the undead there. It looks like the undead are only spawning from inside the castle. While I was relieved to know that the monsters were only spawning inside, some roam weapons in the shapes of hammers or spears came flying at me. I promptly shot them down with light magic, but at this rate, there won't be an end to this. The undead don't seem to be spawning outside. Shall we retreat for now? Ryama, at this rate, we'll just end up exhausting our strength and magic. Shiva, indeed, regrouping with the slimes outside seems to be our best bet. Sabasu, seeing our anti-air group doing well as they battled the lick in the skies, we opened the gate and went out with the slimes. Fortunately, the gate didn't end up having some weird power that kept us from opening it, and we were able to easily open it from inside. I erected a pillar of stone to keep the gate open before we left. We didn't bother destroying it anymore since it seems it would just get fixed anyway. The undead chased after us, and though the slime numbers have doubled, the battle seemed like it would still continue. But then when we got far enough, pillars of fire rained from the sky around the castle gate. Ooh! The wind took with it the heat of the flames as it blew the rising smoke and spread the smell of scorched and rotting flesh. I couldn't help but frown upon getting a whiff of that. Then a voice called out to us. "Is everyone all right?" It was Ramiri Neeson who had been battling the lick. Afterwards, Rainbow-sama flew to where we were as well. "What happened to the lick?" "Ryoma, we couldn't kill it. It was really tricky and it managed to run into the building." "Ramiri, it wasn't for naught. It turns out that lick isn't very strong in a straight-up fight. The only thing it's good at is backstabbing and running away. It can't use anything other than dark magic too." Rainbow, weak in a straight-up fight. That's not something you hear a lot, but if that's the case then, the adventurers that attacked ahead of us were probably caught. Shiva, as the billowing wind scattered the rising smoke, Shiva-san solemnly looked toward the castle gates, and out of the fire and the smoke did the undead appear, seemingly unperturbed as if nothing at all had happened. There's no way there's really no end to them, right? They must have a limit. This is a problem. Does everyone still have magic to spare? Ryoma, my magic is fine, but I should drink some magic recovery potions just to be safe. The others also drank some before the undead came. As for the slimes, well, they seem to be all right. Now what? At this rate, we'll take up too much time. Ramiri, my dragons could just cook them all, but we should save the surviving adventurers first. Rainbow, we might have to abandon them if the situation turns for the worse, but for now we have to prioritize saving them as we still haven't been pushed that badly yet. The undead aren't strong, but they're really annoying. To begin with, just where is all that undead coming? After having gotten some distance and seeing the way the undead appeared, it suddenly felt like I've seen something similar before. I've got it. Ryoma W. What is it all of the sudden? Ramiri, that moment of eureka ended up surprising Ramiri Neeson, bringing the attention of the other three to me. I was wondering why the way the undead appeared felt similar, and I finally realized that it's because it's exactly the same with the grave slimes. Ryoma, the other four became thoughtful. Now that you mention it, it does seem like it. Sebasu, and that would also explain where all those undead were hiding, but Ramiri, even if there is a magical beast with a similar ability, the question is where? Shiva, honestly, I can't see anything but undead. Rainbow, it was here that I shared something I thought of. But what if that entire fortress is that magical beast? Ryoma, the gate we destroyed was fixed after all. And there is precedence for objects turning into magical beasts, like the Rome weapons, for example. Sebasu, it just might be then. Ramiri, we all looked toward the fortress. We can find out for sure if we use monster identify. Ramiri, I'm going to approach the fortress. Back me up. Rainbow, gotcha. We'll come back right away, so you guys just wait here, okay? Ramiri, like that, the two rode on the backs of Rainbow-sama's dragons and approached the castle. After a few seconds, they came back. Ryoma-chan's right. The fortress is a magical beast. Ramiri, status name Ghost House, skills Spawn Ghosts LV7, Enshrine Remains LV9, Mimic LV9, Regenerate LV7. After hearing the results of Rainbow-sama's monster identify, there was no doubting it. That fortress was definitely the one responsible for all those undead. That Enshrine Remains skill proves it. It's exactly the same as the grave slimes. That spawn skill of it has also got to be related with the undead, just like the attract ghosts and absorb ghosts skill are. It says spawn, so I suppose it's an ability that creates undead. Wait a moment, wouldn't this mean that this thing might be the reason for the sudden increase of undead in the Troll Canyon? I see it has a regenerate skill. That's probably what fixed that gate. It's an ability that the undead also possess. So I checked with the grave slimes whether the fortress was also food undead, and it gave me a "now that you mention it" feeling in response. It looks like they were fooled too. After that we tried breaking the castle walls, but it just fixed itself again. As for light magic, the ghost house was originally a fortress, so it didn't work. Although it seems that the undead stopped coming for a moment when the ghost house had to regenerate itself. Observing the ghost house through the slimes, it seems that when we destroyed a part of the castle walls, those parts stopped being a part of the magical beast for a moment, but only until it regenerated. So the fortress can fix itself and there's no end to the undead. Isn't there an easy way to kill this thing? Like a nucleus or something like the slimes. Also, we're still investigating, but it seems highly probable that this ghost house doesn't have any way of attacking aside from spawning undead. If so, then I wonder if the lick was born from this ghost house, or perhaps they're benefiting from each other instead. In any case, I'm glad I had the grave slimes with me. Not just for their fighting power, but also because we probably wouldn't have figured out that fortress itself was living if not for them having similar abilities. Volume 5, Chapter 28. In the canyon, at the edge of the open square where a rotting stench filled the air, were Ryalma and his friends battling the undead. There's too many. Shiva, the analysis of the grave slime, brought Ryalma and his friends to barrage the castle walls with light magic, causing the ghost house's walls to turn into mere walls. Given time, the walls would turn back to being a part of the ghost house, but the barrage of light magic scared the ghost house into spawning more undead. The ghost house spawned as much it could, but the great horde just outside the gates kept the undead from leaving. With nowhere to go, the undead kept growing in number inside the fortress, until eventually they started appearing even above the walls and gates. Then in their pushing and pulling of each other as their numbers grew too great for the castle walls, they spilled into the square like a waterfall of rot and bones. They would have surely died if they were yet alive, but being undead, the greater half of them only picked themselves up before walking again. The undead horde did not come from only one direction, but from all four directions of the fortress. At that, it no longer mattered how many the slimes ate or how many the dragons cooked. This was already far beyond the number they could handle. Even the wyverns the dragons once felled became undead. Not that they lasted long, though, as the dragons killed them as soon as they saw them. The ghost house is a living creature, so it spawns more undead near the area where it feels pain, while spawning less in other areas. When Ryalma's group saw that, they figured that the rate the undead was spawning must be the fastest the ghost house could, but knowing that alone wouldn't put a stop to the undead. As the ghost house rampaged with the power of number, the slime sent a message to Ryalma, and he called out to the others. The full grave slimes are coming out. Ryalma, although full, that only really meant that they needed time to digest all the undead they'd eaten before they could eat again. The problem, however, was that there were just too many undead. The slime's rate of digestion was not fast enough to reduce the undead's number. At this rate, the undead would surely manage to break through the front lines. Realizing that, Ryalma thought up a new plan. Remiri Nisan, we can still hold if the grave slimes fuse to become an emperor slime, but, Ryalma, you're worried about the lick, right? Don't worry, just leave it to me. I'll protect the slimes, so you just deal with undead right in front of you. Remiri understood. Slimes retreat. Ryalma, the emperor grave slime, is much more powerful than a mere grave slime, so it should do better than the grave slimes. That's the reason why Remiri agreed to Ryalma's plan and went off to fight the lick. As soon as the grave slimes received Ryalma's orders, they ran as fast as they could to fuse while Shiva, Sebasu, and Ryalma protected them. As the slimes fused together, the fused body grew bigger and bigger until it filled the road. After seeing the grave slimes fuse successfully, Ryalma gave them his orders. Fun! Shiva swept the zombies away with his weapon. More zombies came from the right, but the Emperor Grave Slime was waiting for them, and it crushed them into the ground with its tentacles. Moreover, with the Emperor Grave Slime able to move its nucleus into its tentacles, turning what would normally be a mere extension into its main body, the Emperor Grave Slime was able to move faster than anyone. After that, the Emperor Grave Slime gathered the undead with its attract ghost skill, and then crushed them one after another with its tentacles. With the magic using slimes and the Rimmel birds added, Ryalma and his friends were finally able to start pushing the undead back. Can the slimes keep this up? Shiva, the way they are now, they can digest just fast enough to match the undead, so it should be fine. We have to do something about the ghost house, though. The ghost house can be eaten, but it's too big. Ryalma, I see. Let's prioritize the survivors first. If we can just do something about them, it won't even matter even if we don't defeat these monsters here. Shiva, well, this is a bit much for a party of 5 to handle. Ryalma, if we knew about this before coming here, the Adventurers Guild could have gathered the adventurers with an emergency request. Even the army and the knights might have moved. Shiva, right, but since we're here anyway, we might as well try Rainbow-sama. What's the location of the survivors? Ryalma, they've all been gathered at the center of the fortress. There's 16 of them, but they haven't been moving at all. Rainbow excluding the castle walls. The row house in the fortress was about 60 meters wide and 20 meters long with 3 doors. As for the interior, Ryalma didn't know either. But the fact that the surviving adventurers were all gathered into one spot without moving sounded very much like a trap. Still, they had to try save them. Let's go. Shiva, at Shiva's words, the Emperor Grave Slime led the charge with Ryalma, Shiva, and Sebasu as they plunged into the horde of undead. The other 2 who were flying in the air covered them until they reached the castle walls, where Ryalma gave the slime a new order. Hide! Ryalma, the door thrown open. The slime extended 2 of its tentacles to hook the castle walls above. Then, using that as support, the slime thinly spread itself over the castle walls like a banner. It spread itself further over the land until the door of the row house. And after Ryalma and his friends entered through the gate, the slime kept the gate from closing, while taking the opportunity to catch the nearby undead after turning what remained of its body into tentacles. The undead frequently came from down the road, but because of the slime catching the incoming slimes, the undead could never manage to make it up. Like this, Ryalma's group was able to make a safe road, and after reaching the row house, they took out their magic tools and used them. As Sebasu warily opened the door, a room packed with undead was waiting for them. Flash grenade, Ryalma with the flick of his fingers. Ryalma threw a ball of light into the room full of undead, and Sebasu hurriedly closed the door. As light spilled from inside through the narrow gaps of the door, everything went silent. The group waited for the light spilling through the gaps to cease, then, go. Shiva, the first to charge, was Ryalma, who ran into the room with his whole body wrapped in light magic. Then, when the coast was clear, the rest of the group followed. What greeted them then was a room 20 meters wide and 10 meters long. There were pillars erected here and there for support, but overall, it was a long and narrow room with a lonely atmosphere to it. There were no undead left when they entered, and the 16 adventurers were right there on the ground next to the wall facing them. So that's why. The reason we didn't see any more adventurers other than those first 3 was because they couldn't move anymore. Ryalma, the 16 adventurers were yet alive, but they could no longer move because of all the injuries and fatigue they've incurred. Even mind control couldn't make a broken body move. Ryalma went quiet upon seeing their situation. Then, light shot. Ryalma, he casted a beam of light above his head. Kaka! Lick, suddenly, out of nowhere, was a set of bones wrapped in robes floating above him. The light shot hit its right arm, and the lick squirmed in pain up there by the ceiling before spinning down opposite Ryalma's direction like a plane crashing. But somehow it managed to successfully land on the ground. It might have been because of the pain of losing its arm, or it might have been because of the frustration of having its surprise attack foiled. But regardless what the reason may be, the lick glared angrily at Ryalma. Don't think the same trick will always work. Ryalma and the lick glared at each other. Then, as they took a step toward each other, Shiva and Sebasu bolted for the surviving adventurers. Fighting in a narrow room with many people could cause undesired results, so they had decided beforehand for Ryama to deal with the lick should it appear, while Shiva and Sebasu would help the adventurers. Ka lick. Light shot. Ryama the lick floated in the air and tried to cast a spell toward Shiva and Sebsao, but Ryama stopped it, and he stood between the lick and them. The undead couldn't appear yet because of the trace of light magic left from the earlier spell, but it was only a matter of time. The danger will greatly increase once they come, so they couldn't waste time. They needed to save the adventurers as soon as possible. Don't get in the way. Not that you can understand me. Ryama ka 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 ka. Lick. As the lick laughed, it casted the dark magic dark ball toward Ryama, which Ryama met head-on with his own light ball. As the two spells canceled each other out, Ryama closed in on the lick and he struck out his fist covered in light magic. The lick slipped away again far from his fist's reach, but light shot. Ryama light magic burst out of Ryama's fist like a buckshot, leaving the lick with little room to maneuver. It still managed to get off unhurt, but a part of the spell penetrated its robes. Seeing the part that got hit melt, Ryama was able to confirm that his spells could indeed hurt the lick. The lick retreated once more, and Ryama pursued after it relentlessly, not letting it have the leeway to cast a higher tier of dark magic. Just as Ramiri had mentioned, the lick was weak in a straight-up fight, and Ryama didn't have any difficulties fighting the lick. But the lick's swaying and irregular movements that it could do because of its inhuman body allowed it to dodge any fatal attacks. It's tenacious, but it's not strong. At this rate, won't this guy just run away? Ryama, in the short time they had been fighting, the undead has been attacking less and less and not even regenerating. It was clearly weakened. If he were to keep pushing it like this, wouldn't it just run? With that thought in mind, Ryama decided to push the lick hard. But no matter how much he hurt the lick, it just wouldn't run. Either it really doesn't want to let the captive adventurers go, it's planning something, or there's something else going on here. Anyway, I shouldn't attack it carelessly. The captive adventurers are the priority. All I have to do is to ensure that this thing doesn't get past me. Ryama fought his hardest to keep the lick at bay. Then as they continued to fight, lick, wind cutter, Shiva ka, lick. Having finished securing the adventurers, Shiva casted a wind magic against the lick. Fighting Ryama alone was one thing, but fighting all three by itself was another. The odds it would just straight up lose was high. Even the lick understood that. And so this time it decidedly tried to run away. Stripping off its robes and throwing them to Ryama, then casting a dark ball toward Sebasu, it ran away with all its might for the wall from where Ryama's group entered, even as it had to endure a heavy wound from Shiva's wind magic. Think we're going to let you run, Ryama. Light shot. Ryama casted a buckshot of light magic toward the back of the weakened lick. But then three zombies appeared right above Ryama and the path of the light shot, blocking the magic and keeping it from reaching the lick. To think they'd start coming now. Are we out of time? Ryama, without the time to feel vexed about letting the lick run, undead began to rain from the ceiling. And in no time at all, the whole place was packed with undead, especially the exit. Over here. Sebasu, Ryama, and Shiva immediately ran towards Sebasu when they heard his voice, and when they reached him, Sebasu chanted just one word. Teleport. Sebasu, and all of the sudden, Ryama and his friends vanished from that room now crawling with undead. KMF update. 309 won't be out until the end of the month as my partner is too busy with Earl stuff. Anyway, you can expect 2 chapters then, as previously mentioned. One from my partner, and one from Jiggly Volume 5, Chapter 29, going back in time a bit. Back to the moment right after Ryama's group charged in. Was Ramiri going all out on the ghost house in an attempt to lessen the burden on Ryama's group even a little? She showered the castle walls in magic, while the slimes and the Rimmel birds would lure the enemy's attention. letting the two dragons roast them black. Rainbok and his two Ignis dragons knew where Ryalma's group and the surviving adventurers were, so they could fight as they pleased without fear of friendly fire. Remiri would have joined them as well, but she had her hands full protecting the Emperor Grave slime from the Lick's mind control. Not to mention, she also needed to conserve her magic to heal the captive adventurers later. As she watched the Emperor Grave slime that was shaped like a plate, the ghost house in the backdrop caught her attention and she became thoughtful. How can we defeat this ghost house? My attacks don't really seem to be working. Does it have a nucleus after all? But if so, how are we supposed to find something like that? While deep in thought, she noted the roof by the edge of her vision, and all of a sudden a lick came flying out of the castle walls. It's here. Light shot, Remiri, Kahai. Lick immediately. Remiri fired off her magic, which prioritized speed and accuracy over raw power. But the Lick already knew from their previous battles that she would be waiting for it. Twisting its bones, the Lick jumped right into the onslaught of light magic. But it could not come out unscathed from the flurry of light magic. And as the light magic crashed into a part of its ribs, the Lick came out several bones short. Remiri wasn't done yet, but just as she was about to cast another spell, something else approached the Lick. Remiri, the Lick, was almost near enough to touch the ground when that something stopped over the Lick's head, bringing with it the cold of the wind to blow over the Lick's head. That something was none other than a tentacle of the Emperor Grave slime. When the Lick passed through the wall beside the door Ryalma's group entered, it just so happened that the Emperor Grave slime was right there, on the other side of that wall, spread thin to create a path just as Ryalma had ordered it. And with the Lick within its attacking range, the Emperor Grave slime attacked. Dodging one and then another, the Lick had no time to rest, as 5 tentacles now chased after it. It was curious whether the Emperor Grave slime attacked because of Ryalma's order or simply because it saw the Lick as food no different from the rest of its bony delights. But regardless, the slime relentlessly pursued the Lick. And when it managed to catch a part of the Lick, it mercilessly took away the femur bones its tentacles managed to latch onto, leaving the Lick with no lower body as it flew away to the sky. But as fortune would have it, there would be no rest for the Lick, for the girl on Dragonback had been patiently waiting for its inevitable return to the skies. Ka, Lick, you're full of holes. Beam. Remiri, a vast amount of magic power gathered at the tip of Remiri's wand before she set it loose upon the undead as a destructive force of light. Lick, by leaving the Lick to be attacked by something else, Remiri was able to take the Lick by surprise and seal it within a pillar of light. The Lick tried to run away, but it couldn't move its body. The most it could do was languidly move its arms. Gradually, its arms began to melt, and smoke began to rise from its body just as its strength quickly waned. Having resigned itself to its fate, the Lick turned its head to look straight at Remiri. There were no traces of pain or peace or sorrow or pleasure on the Lick's face. There were no emotions at all on that skull face of it. It looked at her, and that was all it did as it welcomed death. And then, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, the Lick's head fell over, and the Lick was no more. After that, Ryalma and the others were able to safely rendezvous with the aerial group. After they exchanged information and healed the captive adventurers, they rested in the safe zone secured by the Emperor Grave slime. They finally managed to rescue the adventurers, but their countenance remained grim. That was not only because of the fatigue built up, but more so because of the horrible condition of the captive adventurers. Ryalma-sama, please have some. Sebasu, thank you very much. Ryalma, can I have some too? Remiri, of course. Sebasu, Ryalma, and Remiri treated themselves to a cup of black tea with plenty of sugar. They had put up a field hospital of sorts with the use of all the matting they had, over which they laid down the captive adventurers, where they then removed their curses and treated their wounds. There were 16 adventurers all in all that they had rescued. Half of those had wounds that would heal with enough rest, though they would have to overcome their fever and fatigue first. As for the other half, 6 of them would have to retire, and the remaining 2 breathed their last the moment they undid their curse. With the 3 adventurers they had rescued earlier, they were able to save 17 adventurers all in all. They didn't beat themselves up or anything with some thought like, if only we came earlier. But they did feel down. Though given the circumstances, feeling down was to be expected. Ryalma looked around him as he drank the black tea, starting with the ever-blue sky unfit their current situation, then to the slave demons, and then to his Emperor Grave slime. He watched as the Emperor Grave slime would release an undead through one of its tentacles to slam into another undead. The slime would take the surviving undead into its body and repeat the process, slamming undead against undead one after another to kill them all. I never taught it that, did it learn from the ghost house? As Ryalma's melancholic countenance cheered up at that thought, Rainbach spoke. What next? Are we going back already? Or are we going to try and beat this ghost house? Rainbach, wouldn't it be best to return first to let the captive adventurers recuperate? Sebasu, Ryalma-chan, and I healed them lots. They'll be fine as long as we leave them in the dimension home. Remiri, it would be best if we got some info first though. This thing isn't something we can beat with just numbers, and there should be plenty of information if we just report to the guild. Shiva, after hearing Shiva, Remiri suddenly remembered something. Speaking of which, while you guys were still inside, there was something that caught my attention when I saw the burning ghost house's roof. What was it again? Remiri, you forgot. Rainbach. Well, the lick came out right as it came to mind, so, Remiri, may I propose setting a time limit until which we would be gathering information then? Sebasu, no one had any complaints to Sebasu's proposal, so we decided to come back for the time being. To be honest, even if we go beyond the time limit, it won't really matter if we still don't have a plan. 5 minutes later, everyone was on Dragonback high up the sky, looking down the ghost house from above. Remiri, it was the roof that caught your attention, right? Rainbach. Yes, there are burn marks on it from the dragon's flames. Remiri, might as well, I suppose. Let's try burning it down. Rainbach, with the captive adventurers now saved, there was no chance of accidentally hurting someone. So Rainbach went ahead and ordered the 5 Ignis dragons to line up, and then breathe out a powerful flame toward the center of the ghost house. The heat emanating from the dragon's flames was so great that a shimmer in the air appeared, and when that great heat descended upon the ghost house, it was not just roasted black, but some parts of it were even melted. I guess it's not very good with fire. Rainbach, the ghost house regenerated itself again after the fire, but something seemed to have caught Remiri's attention as she inclined her head and said, "Isn't there something off?" Remiri felt that odd sense of malaise once more, and as she pointed it out, Ryalma and Sebasu agreed with her. Now that you mention it, it does seem odd. Sebasu, how about trying it again? Ryalma, after several tries of burning the castle and it regenerating, Shiva added. Rainbach, this time try separating the dragons into 2 groups, and then burning the castle walls and the roof at the same time. The ghost house just might regenerate slower. Shiva, at that, the gears in Ryalma's head suddenly clicked together. When I attacked the lick to keep it from running, I noticed the undead came out faster than when we tried attacking by the castle walls, but I thought I was just imagining it since I was caught in the middle of a fight, but maybe they really did appear faster. Ryalma looked closely as he compared the tenement houses and the castle walls being burnt. The 2 structures were exactly the same at first, but as they regenerated, a difference could gradually be seen. And then 15 seconds later, the tenement houses could clearly be seen regenerating faster than the castle walls. They tried this again several times, but no matter how much they repeated it, the tenement houses always regenerated first. They even went as far as to compare the regeneration speed of the other walls and even the ground with the tenement houses. And it seemed that the farther something was from the tenement houses, the slower it regenerated. At this point, it wasn't hard to arrive at the conclusion that the place that regenerated the fastest was either the nucleus itself, or if not, then at the very least, it was something very close to it. With that new revelation, Ryalma and the others all used their magic, focusing fire on the tenement houses. As they did, they found out that their target was located in the room to the right of the room Ryalma's group had earlier charged in. The weak point seems to be inside the room. Ryalma, well, it's obviously not affected by our attacks from outside, so attacking from inside would be our best bet. Remiri, looks like we'll have to charge into that castle again. Shiva, although they reached that conclusion steadily, they all still felt like they'd taken the long way around. This magical beast is seriously a pain. I'm so tired already, mentally speaking. Ryalma didn't say that out loud, but if he did, the other four would have surely agreed with him. Then Ryalma thought of something. Remiri Neeson, we've already defeated the lick, right? Ryalma, Oh yes. I properly confirmed it was gone before your group came out. Is something the matter? Remiri, well, since there's no lick and no captive adventurers to save, I thought we could just have the Emperor Grave slime charge into the room. Ryalma, the other four all nodded when Ryalma said that. With no lick around, there was nothing to threaten the slimes, and with no captive adventurers to save, there was no chance of the slimes accidentally hurting someone they shouldn't. Then the next problem would be how to get them in. Rainbach. It should be fine, as the tenement houses are mostly empty. If that still doesn't work, then we can have the slime spit out some of the undead it swallowed until it fits in. Ryalma and the others charged into the ghost house once more. After the charge, everyone was on the back of the dragons again, but this time they were either wryly smiling or sighing. Too quick. Shiva, sorry. Ryalma inadvertently apologized at Shiva's grumbling. Not one of them was feeling down because they failed to hunt the ghost house. Rather, the problem was that the hunt went too well. Everything went exactly as it did last time after they broke through the gate, except this time, Ryalma didn't clear the room with light magic, and instead ordered the Emperor Grave slime to swallow all the undead while spreading its body to every inch of the room. Ryalma had only intended to have the slime clear the room of undead, but the slime ate everything in the room, including the pillars that supported the place. It turned out, however, that one of those pillars was the very nucleus they'd been looking for, but it was only after the slime had swallowed the pillar and the undead stopped spawning that they realized that the ghost house that had been pushing them all this time was actually such a weak magical beast. Ryalma and the others made their way back home after an anticlimactic ending. Ryalma-chan's not at fault, you know. And besides, it's good that we managed to beat it so easily, Shiva-chan. Remiri, I'm not blaming him. It was anticlimactic, sure, but at least we're all safe. Nothing's more important than that. Shiva, that aside, what do you guys want to eat? I'm sure you're all tired, so we should all have a hearty meal with Elia and the others after we hand all these injured children to the guild. Remiri, with the danger gone, the atmosphere between Ryalma and the others gradually turned warm, and after an hour of flying in the reddish sky, they arrived at the city gates. The gatekeepers and the adventurers who saw the dragons went alert for a moment, but when one of the gatekeepers saw that there were people riding them, he waved his hands to signal and lead Rainbach to the landing zone. Then the party entered the town after going through the usual procedures. Ryalma-kun, Michelle. Ryalma waiting by the gate was a girl dressed in man's clothing. It was Michelle, and when she passed through the gate she called out to Ryalma, I'm back, what's wrong? Ryalma thought she was just out to pick them up, so he was about to say, I'm back. But then he noticed Michelle's grim countenance, not to mention the fact that the others weren't with her, so he asked out what's wrong instead. And then Michelle said back, Elia is gone. Michelle, those words clearly resounded despite all the ruckus in town, and when Ryalma and the others heard it, their faces all stiffened. Trouble had come. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com Volume 5 Chapter 30, What Happened? Rainbach asked, and Michelle explained. After Ryalma and the others went to subjugate the lick, the girls stayed in the inn, but with nothing to do, they started to worry. They then decided to go to the church to pray for Ryalma and the others' well-being. After praying, Elia went to the toilet before they left, but she never came back. We searched in the church and along the road to the inn, but she's nowhere to be found. Riera and the others are working with Osloson's group right now to find her. Michelle, I see. Rainbach. What are the odds of her leaving town? Rainbach sighed. Then Ryalma asked that last question, but Michelle quietly shook her head before answering. We checked with all the gatekeepers of the town, but no one saw her. And besides, it would be really dangerous for her to exit town now. I'm sure she understands that too. We also checked her equipment just to be safe, and everything was still there in the inn. I doubt she would have left unarmed. At least I don't think she would on her own volition. Michelle's voice gradually grew smaller as she grew more and more worried. Well, there's no point talking here. We'll go look for her too. Good job letting us know. Shiva, why yes. But first you should go to the inn. Everyone is reporting to Heckard to make it easier to share info, so we might learn something new if we talk to him. Michelle, at Shiva's words, Michelle naturally lifted her downcast face. Then she suggested that we go to the inn. In that case, I shall bring the captive adventurers to the guild. Sebasu, I'll go too. Someone needs to explain what kind of treatment they've received. Ramiri, all right, I'll leave that to you two then. Shiva, like that, Ramiri and Sebasu teleported to the guild, while the rest of us went to the inn. 1 hour later, Ryalma ran through the dimly lit town in search for Elia. Excuse me, did you see Ryalma? Nope, nothing like her. Villager, I see, thanks anyway. Just where in the world did you disappear, Elia? Ryalma, they had gone back to the inn, hoping word of Elia might have arrived, but unfortunately, only the regretful face of Heckard was waiting for them. Ryalma sent the Rimmel birds to search for her, but there were many corners in town the birds couldn't go to, like the inside of the buildings, so Ryalma had to go himself in the end and ask whoever he could for a clue on Elia's whereabouts. But in the end, the only info he could get was that she was last seen entering the church. Even Oslo's group, who frequently got their info from this town, couldn't find a lead other than the church. Phew. Ryalma slowing down after running non-stop, Ryalma looked around him as he caught his breath and pondered. If Elia had really gone somewhere by herself, there should be a lot more info on her than this. There are a lot of adventurers and merchants in this town because of the magic jewels. It's not easy to slip by unnoticed. Was she kidnapped then? It would be likely, but there's nothing pointing to that at all. Ryalma found himself by the corner of a heavily trafficked path. Barrackson mentioned that the missing people might have been kidnapped, and he and the rest of his group seem to think it's the lick behind it. I mean, when you think about it, I only found 5 people after a whole week of searching. A whole week where I used Cursed Song and the Grave Slimes to lure the undead, gathering several thousands of undead just to find a paltry 5 people. That's just too few. I don't know about the lick kidnapping people, though. There's no proof of it, even though it was indeed gathering people. But darn it, what's the point of all this thinking? With the odds growing increasingly higher that Elia was in fact kidnapped, Ryalma's patience started to grow thin. If she was kidnapped, then the culprit either ran away already or is hiding somewhere. Either way, we need to find her quick. But how? Ryalma grit his teeth as he thought of a way to find Elia, but in the end, he couldn't come up with anything aside from continuing the search. Should I send the Rimmel birds again? Maybe ask people one after another, or no, there's no other method left. If there were, I would have used them ages ago. Ryalma decided to search the town again, but just as he was about to run off, something caught his attention. Is that? That something was like a ray of hope, and Ryalma immediately went after it. On the other side of the byway of the main street was a small path which led to a building annexed to a church. Ryalma caught his breath before entering the church. Then as he entered into what seemed to be a former chapel reconstructed into a hall, a middle-aged man who seemed to be a priest greeted him. "Oh, a new face. How may I help you, priest? I would like to pray." "Ryalma, please, priest, thank you." Ryalma, the middle-aged priest, must have sensed something from Ryalma's stiff face, as he asked no more and opened the door to the chapel. The place seemed to still be under construction, but the chapel was already completed, and there were even several people praying inside. Ryalma bowed his head to thank the priest. Then he took a seat in one of the many chairs of the chapel and prayed. "Please, someone hear me out." And then light wrapped around Ryalma. The hope Ryalma saw was none other than this opportunity to ask one of the gods. A plea to a god, so to speak. A normal person might not receive any reply even if he asked, but Ryalma's close relationship to the gods meant that he would surely receive some sort of reply. Only, as to how much that reply would help him was not guaranteed, for it was up to the gods whether they would answer and how much they would say. For example, if the god to greet Ryalma would be the god of liquor, who cared little about minor details, the odds are high that he would give Ryalma a more specific location. But on the other hand, if it were someone like the god of magic, Fernovir, the odds of being rejected would shoot up. Ryalma also rarely asked the gods for such help. This would be a first, for this time he was truly at his wits' end. Gradually, the light grew faint. Ryalma knew that it was nothing more than for his own selfish reasons that he wished to find Elia. But even then, he hoped it would be Tekun on the other side, wrapped in a jet-black dress. The god to greet Ryalma was the stolid god of sleep and death, Meltrise, Volume 5, Chapter 31. Ryalma was troubled to see Meltrise. She was not as stiff as Fernovir nor as lax as Tekun, but she was the hardest to read among the gods. One reason for that being that she was usually expressionless. "She looks mad." There was a faint shadow over her in the same color of her dress that one would not see unless one paid attention. "I was pretty sure we were getting along, but I wonder if it was just my imagination." "Sit." Meltrise. Sorry." Ryalma, unsure how to start the conversation with the current mood of the god before him. Ryalma was beaten to the punch when Meltrise asked him to take a seat. Ryalma accepted her offer, and he sat himself opposite the goddess at the small table reminiscent of those used by nobles during tea time. "I know why you're here, but there's not much I can tell you." "Meltrise, I came here knowing that might be the case. Really, if I can just get a hint of some sort, I would be really grateful." Ryalma. Meltrise nodded, and Ryalma listened as attentively as he could. "This incident is as you feared, a kidnapping." Meltrise. "Was it planned?" Ryalma. "Yes." Meltrise. "Is this the same person responsible for the missing people?" Ryalma. "Yes." Meltrise. "Why did they kidnap Elia? Did they mistake her for an adventurer?" Ryalma. "No." Meltrise. "Can you tell their goal?" "No." "All right." Ryalma, unable to say any further, Ryalma's last question was only met with silence. "This is really what I want to know. Is Elia safe?" Ryalma asked anxiously, and Meltrise nodded. "She's safe. Her life isn't in any danger, and neither has she been injured. Of course, her chastity too." Meltrise. "Thank goodness, thank goodness." Ryalma was greatly relieved to hear that, but Meltrise continued. "You won't have to worry about her safety until morning, but I can't guarantee her safety if you don't find her soon." Meltrise. "So she's still being held captive then?" Meltrise nodded, and Ryalma's face turned slightly grimmer. "Where is she being held captive?" Ryalma. "Outside of town." Meltrise. "Can I get something more specific?" Ryalma. "They moved. It doesn't matter even if I tell you where, as you've never been there before." Meltrise. I suppose the oracle skill doesn't allow me to ask a specific location, Ryalma, that is asking too much from the skill. Mel tries in the end, he couldn't figure out exactly where she was, but there wasn't any point in panicking, so he told himself to calm down. I heard the gatekeepers didn't see anyone suspicious. Was that a lie, Ryalma? Mel tries, I don't know what criterion she's basing when to answer or not, but it seems keeping silent means she can't talk in detail, but that the question does have some relation to the issue at hand. How many are the kidnappers? Ryalma. Mel tries silent again. Ryalma thought, but as soon he did, the shadow over Meltries grew a little darker. There are only 2 kidnappers, but they have some friends. Meltries, the tone of her voice was the same as ever, but Ryalma was concerned with the delay in her reply and that shadow. He thought he probably shouldn't ask any further, but then, noticing his reaction, Meltries drew away the shadow. Just ask what you want. I will be the one to decide whether to answer or not, and I'm not mad at you. Meltries, then why are you angry, Ryalma? Because the kidnapping took place in church. Meltries, so that's why. But then again, considering how I need a church or something like it to meet the gods, I suppose it really is a special place for them. Anyway, at least it's confirmed now that Elia was in fact kidnapped in the church. Michelle's group and Ramiri Neeson did go to the church to investigate, but they found nothing. These are the same culprits as the ones responsible for the kidnapping of the missing adventurers, however, so there's probably an organization behind them. If so, then there might be a trail I can follow. Ryalma felt the urge to run out to town to look for Elia this very instant, but he had to wait until his time in the divine realm expired, so he spoke to Meltries again. Thank you. Just knowing that Elia's no longer in town and is still safe is a huge help to me. Is there anything I can do back outside to show my gratitude? I'll do it as soon as I settle this business. Ryalma, it's fine. In fact, I want to thank you too. Meltries, thank me. Why, did I do something? Ryalma thought back to these past few days, but he couldn't recall doing anything to be thanked for. There was the matter with the undead, but he was always having the grave slime eat and store them for later consumption, so surely she wouldn't take him for that. But it turns out that really was what she was thankful for. Ghost house. Meltries, sorry if I'm always asking stuff, but why exactly does that beast matter? Ryalma, that magical beast was a pain. Meltries, then Meltries started talking. The ghost house was a magical beast that fed on magical power and spawned undead, and the place it was settled at was one of the greatest concentrations of magic power in Troll Canyon. After you found the fragment of the Demon King and gave it to Gain, we went to change the flow of magic at Troll Canyon. Meltries, when the fragment of the Demon King that was sucking all the magic power was suddenly removed. The magic power that was being absorbed all this time by the fragment overflowed into the abandoned execution grounds. So the gods had to change the flow to ensure that magic was equally distributed throughout the canyon. This is the reason why there are so many magical jewels and weak undead now. When the investigation team went to investigate the area, they went to areas where the concentration of magic power was greater. After all, the greater the magic power, the faster the recovery of one's magic power, and thus, the more undead and magic jewels in the area. So they put up a fortress in one of the places where the magic concentration was the greatest, but after they were done with their investigation, they took it down and left it there, allowing it to eventually turn into a ghost house. I see. But since they're birthed from magic and are there because of the great concentration of magic, then the spawned undead should be, Ryalma, infinite. They would keep on being spawned, each time exhausting the world's supply of mana. Meltries, Ryalma let out an ah as he inadvertently slapped his forehead with his hand. No wonder she thought the ghost house annoying. There was already so little magic in this world already that the gods had to borrow magic from Earth, and yet here was a magical beast that added to that problem like a tumor. Then, while Ryalma was quietly listening to her like this, a thought suddenly came to mind. When you think about it, the ghost house was born because of the investigation team. But the reason the investigation team came to investigate was because of the scattered magic power. But the magic power was only scattered because I removed the Demon King's fragment. So, doesn't that basically mean that I'm the reason the ghost house was born? I probably shouldn't think about it too much. I mean, the fragment was pretty bad and had to be removed anyway. What's the matter? Mel tries, it's nothing. By the way, it's our first time talking like this, huh? Just the two of us, I mean. We don't really get to meet aside from the banquets. Ryalma, yes, it's a first. We have plenty of spare time except for when searching for the Demon King's fragment, so you should come more frequently. Qfo is particularly annoying when there's nothing to do. Mel tries, the image of a god who looked like a small boy smiling flashed through Ryalma's mind. Did you imagine it? Mel tries, easily. I'll think of something fun for the next banquet. Ryalma said that a faint light started to shine. It's time. Ryalma, good luck. It's a battle of time from here on out, so hurry. And make sure to have someone come with the 4 young girls, either you or someone else. Mel tries, I'll do my best. Ryalma added. There's a high chance I'll find the culprits responsible for the kidnapping in the church, especially those guys who kidnapped Elia. Ryalma, as he said that, Meltries went quiet for a few seconds before saying, Ryalma-san, punish them well. Meltries 1. Did you learn that from a certain show at a nursing home? Meltries' sudden switch to that drama-like phrase caused Ryalma to inadvertently pull a Tsukomi, but the god in question just cutely inclined herself as if all was right with the world. It's a phrase I learned from another earthling like you. Is something wrong? Mel tries, come to think of it, Asaga-san also spoke in that drama-like manner, so by earthling she's probably referring to Asaga's ancestral master. That earthling apparently really liked Japanese literature and studied it a lot. Mel tries, you don't really use it in day to wait, he likes Japanese literature. Ryalma, that phrasing caused Ryalma to feel a bit of malaise. Was that person Japanese? Ryalma, no, but he said his heart was Japanese. He looked up to the samurai and said that he wants to be like them. Mel tries. His image of Japan is a bit off, almost like a foreigner otaku of Japanese culture. But I don't get it, if he's so knowledgeable as to even know how to make soy sauce and miso soup and pass it on to his successors. How could he possibly be so off with such basic knowledge? Come to think of it, there was also that foreigner client who loved Japanese culture and could even speak Japanese fluently, but for some reason had Chinese letter, toilet tattooed on his arm. That client mentioned he had it tattooed because he thought it was cool. I wonder what the tattooist thought while he was working on that guy. When Ryalma noticed Meltries still looking confused, he said, we don't actually talk like that outside of dramas or plays. Ryalma, I see. Meltries, as they had that exchange, the light gradually grew stronger, and when Ryalma said goodbye, his consciousness returned to his body. Upon returning to the mortal realm, Ryalma refocused his mind, then stood up from his chair and left the chapel. His conversation with Meltries was really a load off his back, such that when the priest saw him again, he told Ryalma that his countenance seemed better now. In response, Ryalma just said that praying calmed him down, and then left after leaving some offering. When he got out, he ran through the dimly lit roads of the town once more. There are a lot of rocky areas and cliffs around these parts, so the paths one can take should be limited. Anyway, I should first go back and talk to the others. They know I'm a child, so having the oracle skill shouldn't be a big deal, but Oslo's group. Ryalma pondered to himself how he should share the information he received, but then something blocked his way. Ryalma running through a path so narrow it would be difficult for people to pass each other in it. When Ryalma turned right to a path rarely visited by people, he noted a man whose face was wrapped in a cloth 20 meters away from him. Just a cloth wasn't enough to rouse suspicion. He would still be just a passerby. But the fact that the man had his bow aimed at Ryalma left no room for doubt. Having already made the turn, there were only walls in Ryalma's flanks, so he prepared to pull out his katana upon noticing the man. But when he did, the man let loose the arrow, then vanished without a trace. Ryalma pulled out his katana as he pushed down his sheath, unleashing the blade into an upward slash to meet the descending arrow in its path. It didn't matter that the path was as dark as could be. Ryalma cut down the arrow as flawlessly as he could in the light of day. There was a piece of paper attached to the arrow, and it came floating down the air when Ryalma struck the arrow down. Search, a magician that uses dimension magic. Ryalma did not only invoke the neutral magic search, but he also sharpened his ears and eyes to search the surroundings for his mysterious assailant. But the man was already gone. Ryalma silently sheathed his katana, then headed for the paper attached to the arrow. He'd only realized there was a paper attached to the arrow right before striking the arrow down, but it was clear as day that that paper contained a message regarding Elia. Gathering the pieces of the paper, 4 all in all, as it must have been folded when the arrow was cut in two, Ryalma pondered to himself. That man was definitely one of Elia's kidnappers, but why now? What's the point of showing themselves? And what's the point of sending a letter through an arrow while aiming for the vitals? Fortunately, as there was no wind, Ryalma was able to safely recover all 4 pieces of the letter and read it. Dear Ryalma Take Bayashi, Elialia Jamal is in our hands. If you want to save her, come to the designated location alone at the appointed time. If you tell anyone about this letter, you can consider her life forfeit. Whether I follow this letter's order or not, if the others find out anyway and they catch wind of it, Elia will be killed all the same. Where and at what time do they want to meet? After reading the threatening letter, Ryalma scratched his head in confusion. That's odd. Why are they calling me out personally? Wouldn't you normally want to call someone from Rainbock's family instead? And this place is. The meeting place designated was in Troll Canyon, and it was quite far. In fact, Ryalma normally wouldn't be able to make it by the time set by the kidnappers, if not for his dimension magic. Clearly, the kidnappers knew about his ability to use dimension magic. So their real aim is to call me out. Ryalma Volume 5, Chapter 32, Huff Huff Huff. Ryalma, aided only by the light of the moon and the light in his hand, Ryalma quickly moved through the dim paths of the canyon. Only a few minutes has passed since he left the city after receiving the threatening letter. Adventurers passed him from time to time as he traversed the canyon. They were probably still out because of the lick case, but regardless, Ryalma passed by them without sparing a glance as he hurried on his way. The farther Ryalma ran, the less adventurers passed by and the more undead appeared. Yet he ran quickly through such a perilous canyon, avoiding needless fights to avoid needlessly expending his energy, as he knew that this was probably a trap. Of course, there were times when he couldn't avoid a fight too. Zombie 1. Zombie 2. 2 zombies appeared before him, blocking his path. Fu. Ryalma, but with a swing of his Kyrian-forced adamantite katana, he cut the 2 zombies in half with a single stroke. That alone wouldn't kill the zombies for good, but it was enough to keep them from moving until they regenerated, giving Ryalma ample time to leave them in the dust, which he did. Ryalma madly rushed through the canyon like this, but unbeknownst to him, he was being watched. Harris Crow 1. A lone Harris Crow was flying up in the skies, hidden behind the veil of darkness as it watched Ryalma running through the canyon. This Harris Crow was not here by coincidence. It was here precisely to watch Ryalma, as it sent everything it saw back to someone far away. Beneath the shade of a rock in a place not too far from the city, were a man dressed in metal armor from head to toe and a man dressed in leather armor. They were both members of the group responsible for the kidnappings. The leather-armored man was watching Ryalma through the Harris Crow. Has he made any suspicious movements? Metal-armored man. He doesn't look very happy, but he's following our orders all right. Only he's moving a bit too fast. At this rate, he'll arrive ahead of schedule. How's the city? Leather-armored man. No word yet, never mind, he's here. Metal-armored man, a man wielding a bow, suddenly appeared from the shadows. He was obviously one of their friends. Yo, how is everyone? Bow-wielding man, the man covered in armor, asked in a jovial tone. You're late. Has there been any movements in town? Metal-armored man. None. The guy called Ryalma did as instructed and left town after getting some random request from the guild. He did go to the toilet once, but he just went to relieve himself and wash his face. He didn't contact anyone. Bow-wielding man. You sure you didn't overlook anything? No one's following him, right? Leather-armored man, the bow-wielding man, responded in a voice slightly more serious than earlier. I had people in place to watch the guy. There's no one following him. Preparing everything was a pain, but he definitely vanished into the crowd properly. There's no point investigating the toilet either. I mean, no slime or Rimmel bird came out, and there's nowhere to hide there anyway. Anyway, enough about me. What about your side? You made sure to watch him, right? One of the orders given was to not use dimension magic until after he gets far enough from the village. Bow-wielding man. Everything is clear on our end too. He looks vigilant, but he can't do anything anyway, so it's fine. It would be great if he just kept running and ran out of gas, but that's probably not happening. Can't even buy time. Leather-armored man. After the leather-armored man said that, the bow-wielding man started complaining. You know, I said this before, but that old geezer is really dangerous. I really don't want to face him in a straight-up fight. If the plan changes any more than this, I'm out. Bow-wielding man. Yeah, if he arrives late, he can kiss the woman goodbye. I can monitor him while he's running, but once he starts teleporting, my Harris Crow won't be able to follow. You know, something really just might happen before he arrives. Leather-armored man, the metal-armored man, interjected. Stop it. And there's no need for dimension magic anyway, since it's not that far. Besides, it's better than his allies finding out. Metal-armored man. Right. Someone coming to support him would indeed be worse if we left someone to watch the town, so we'll just have to brace ourselves. Not long after the leather-armored man said that, Ryalma teleported. With that, the duty of the leather-armored man was finished, and they also teleported away. 1 hour later, directly south of the center of the canyon, was Ryalma, standing at the top of a tall cliff, looking down the staircase-like path of the cliff that led to the location designated in the letter. There's something there. In the designated location was a pillar of stone as high as one's waist, upon which was a scrap of paper. When Ryalma unfolded the paper, he found out that it was a map. They didn't tell me about this. They're really being cautious. Climbing up and down the staircase-like cliffs, and passing through some thickets here and there, took him all in all about 20 minutes. So they are planning on ambushing me. I'm surrounded. As the wind blew throughout the canyon, the sound of clothes ruffling resounded along the sound of weapons being readied. The enemy didn't seem to have any intentions of attacking, but Ryalma could sense their numbers growing as he drew deeper the designated location. When the location pointed out in the new map came to view, what he saw was a level area about as big as a basketball court, around which was a fence with uneven height reinforced by earth magic, blocking any other paths of escape. Further up ahead was another cliff, atop which was a lit torch surrounded by several men. When Ryalma took a step further, a young man seemingly still in his 20s called out to him. Walk to the center. Don't make any unnecessary movements. Ryalma did as he said, though he did so while making sure there were no traps buried under the ground. When he reached the center, magic wrapped around Ryalma and 40 people showed themselves. They were mostly men with a ratio of 4 men for every woman. Most of them wielded ranged weaponry like bows. They looked down on Ryalma from atop the cliff, where his katana couldn't reach them. As Ryalma braced himself, he focused his senses to unravel the purpose of the magic he felt earlier. A magic barrier. Ryalma said that in a weak voice, but the earlier man managed to pick it up. It would trouble us if you ran, after all. These guys have their weapons out just to be safe, but they won't do anything as long as you listen to me. When Ryalma heard the man say that, he started analyzing the situation. Ryalma had no intention of just blindly doing what he was told. He says that after going out of his way to secure a hostage, he doesn't trust me at all, does he? Though it is true that I can't use my dimension magic, judging from the flow of magic power, its scope is quite big. I don't think a person casted this. More than likely they used a tool or a magic jewel. It's a barrier pretty much meant to be used for buildings. Since they're able to prepare something like this, I suppose there really is someone behind them. Magic tools that could erect barriers were by no means cheap. Your run-of-the-mill bandit couldn't possibly procure them. Upon realizing that these bandits weren't just bandits, Ryalma sent an order to the shadow slimes hiding in his shadow. Since the magic tool is turned on, it should be emitting magic power. Use that magic power to find the tool, then hide yourselves in its shadow. At his orders, 8 shadow slimes began to move to all 4 directions without anyone noticing. The slimes can take care of the barrier, so I should just focus on confirming Elia's whereabouts. I came as you asked, but you are the people responsible for kidnapping Elia, right? While I do want to know why you had to go out of your way to call me out like this, there's something I want to know first. Is Elia safe? Ryalma firmly asked. It would have been troublesome if she made a fuss, so we put her to sleep and gagged her, then stuffed her in a bag. I want to see she's safe. Ryalma, oh, then at that case, oi, bring the bag. Is this young man the leader? Sure is different from all the chief heads I've seen until now. He's quite young too. Actually, it's not just him, they're all young. The kidnappers all looked fairly young. Even the oldest among them looked no older than their 20s. Will they really bring Elia? The place where we keep the hostage is a bit far, so it'll take a bit of time until they arrive. Why don't we talk until then? Ryalma's gaze became sharp at those words. Don't be like that. It would be a waste to just wait without doing anything, right? Well, I do want to know why they called me out here. Let's hear it then. Ryalma, and so the young chief head told Ryalma his demands. 1. The cry of crows are said to sound like Aho, which means Idiot Volume 5 Chapter 33, join us. Bandit leader, Ryalma thought for sure the man would ask for wealth or goods. Never did he think that the man would actually ask him to join them. We work in the slave industry for the Dark Guild. We're responsible for the securing and selling of slaves and people who know how to fight. Strong people are really important, you know. We'll have to put a magic tool on you to keep you from rebelling, but we can promise you food and treatment no different from us. It would be a pain if you couldn't fight when needed after all. Bandit leader, I thought the Dark Guild saw me as a thorn in the foot. I heard it from time to time from the bandits I've caught. Ryalma the bandit leader chuckled when Ryalma said that. A message did go around saying to avoid recklessly messing with you, but that was only because there was no point in those small fries attacking you. There are people in the guild who dislike you, yes, but everyone acknowledges your strength, which is why there is value in enslaving you. Many would rather sell you afterwards, but we have no such intentions. In the Dark Guild, money and achievements are everything. No one can take another person's achievements. Doing so means either a beating, excommunication, or even worse, the cellar. As your captors, you belong to us, Ryalma take Bayashi. No one can force us to sell you. Bandit leader, the man said as he made a cutting motion to his neck. Ryalma, however, did not understand what he meant by the cellar. Sensing that, the man called out behind him. Ah, by cellar, we're referring to that. Oi, bring that old man over. Bandit leader. Yes. Henchman, the thin-haired man behind the leader, entered a small path. Then when he came back, he was dragging a hooded man. The man brought that hooded man to the leader. Those who commit an unpardonable crime end up in the cellar. They become slaves of the Dark Guild. Bandit leader. When the leader took off the hood covering the man's face, Ryalma twitched. The man's face was covered with wounds clearly inflicted by another man. There were scars even on the hands that peeked out of his long sleeves, but despite all that, what really bothered Ryalma was those pair of eyes that were full of hostility as they glared at Ryalma. He won't be able to get in town with all those wounds, and if he does run, we'll be able to easily bring him back. People who fall into the cellar aren't given any opportunities to redeem themselves. They are made to work minor jobs away from prying eyes. Many of those who fall into the cellar never make it out, only quietly dying, never to be heard of again. That's why we call it the cellar. Well, they do sometimes get lucky and end up getting transferred. If they're really lucky, they get put to use instead of just letting them rot in the cellar. This man, for example. I heard he once fought with you before, so I brought him here with me. It's thanks to him that I found out all about your fighting style and your weird magic. Bandit leader. After saying all that, the man looked at the scarred man with a mocking face. Ryalma also woke up from his pondering to look at the scarred man. If you want to say a word of complaint or two, I won't mind. Bandit leader. Thank you, scarred man. As the scarred man thanked the leader, he looked down on Ryalma from the top of the cliff. It's been a while. Do you remember me, scarred man? Ryalma became thoughtful for a moment. But who are you? Ryalma. Don't remember, huh? Scarred man. The man started laughing in self-derision. Then with a voice full of rage, he bellowed. You forgot me, but I didn't forget you. Not once. Did I forget you, Mr. Takebayashi? It was because of you that I ended up like this. Because of you that I ended up in the cellar. All because you had to squeal about the Dark Guild branch. Scarred man. Dark Guild branch. Ryalma. It was then that Ryalma finally began to recall the man. It was such an old story that Ryalma had already forgotten about it, but some bandits once attacked his home tunnels out of vengeance for catching their comrades. Of course, Ryalma took care of them, but he let a few of them go to find their base, which he did. The man before him is one of those men that he let escape. He doesn't know his name, though. So you're that guy, Ryalma. You remembered, huh, scarred man? Wasn't the branch destroyed? Why weren't you caught? Ryalma. Apparently, the others you caught helped him, so he wasn't there when the raid happened. In his place, those who were in the branch at the time were caught, and even the deal previously agreed on was broken. After some investigation, we found out that this man here is the reason behind everything, so we threw him into the cellar. Bandit leader. It was the leader who answered Ryalma's question. The scarred man didn't say anything more and just smiled creepily in agreement to the man's words. He walked back behind the leader while grumbling. They make me sick. So this guy leaked information. The magic I used back then was an original if I recall correctly, but I specifically picked out the ones I let escape, so this guy shouldn't know about my secrets either. Around this time, Ryalma received word from the shadow slimes that they had successfully hidden in the shadows of the magic tools responsible for the barrier. Good. All that's left now is Elia. Since they kept talking about some cellar, there are probably a lot of hidden places here. She's probably in one of those. And this so-called leader, he seems to be hiding something. Let's try poking around a bit. I've heard your story, but Elia comes first. Where is she? Are you really planning on bringing her? Ryalma, it ain't easy carrying another person safely up the steep slopes. It'll take some time. I've said it time and time again, we haven't laid a hand on her. So as long as you obediently become a slave, we'll let her go home. Bandit leader, why do you have to go out of your way to make just me your slave? Wouldn't it benefit you more to have both of us as your slaves? Ryalma, you're plenty enough. After all, you're the man responsible for all that ruckus with the Tamer Guild and the Dark Guild. Those incidents really made you famous, you know. Anyway, being too greedy isn't good. Bandit leader. When the leader spoke this time, the tone of his voice seemed far more serious than before. The tone of his voice suddenly changed. Is this guy the type to needlessly take care of his subordinates even when no one asked him to? There were those types back in my previous life. The newcomers sometimes had a tendency to hide their mistakes, but doing that only exacerbated the problems, so these subordinate-caring types would pester them to avoid that, only to be shunned. In the end, they get tired and... Wait, that has nothing to do with the situation right now. Anyway, these types don't really like getting tangled up with problems and unnecessary complications. Now, he might not notice if I just outright change the topic, but it would probably be better if I change the topic shrewdly. The reason he gave wasn't a lie, but it was a bit too weak. Ryama continued. Even though you already kidnapped her, from the letter you gave me, it seems you already know Elia's identity. You should know, right? They're not going to stop looking for you even if you send her back. Ryama, the leader, didn't reply, but he didn't look perturbed either. Compared to him, however, the rest of his men were clearly agitated. It was a mystery whether they simply felt guilty or were fearful of having made enemies with a duke, but there was no doubting that they were restless. The leader glared at them, then he spoke. I know it's a bit late, but we actually didn't have any intentions of kidnapping the young lady of the Jamal household. We were originally supposed to just kidnap another adventurer or two, then run away. Of course, we did consider kidnapping those girls with you, but our targets would have been either one of those two from the beast tribes. Bandit leader. That's still plenty bad, though. I'd feel bad even if it were Kanan or Miyabi who were kidnapped. Although it is true that it wouldn't blow up as much if they were the ones to be kidnapped. Then why did you kidnap Elia, Ryama? The two beast girls just wouldn't leave the others while they were waiting for you to come back. When the kidnapper assigned saw the Jamal young lady leave the group, he saw an opportunity he couldn't let go. Bandit leader, when Ryama heard that, he remembered the ghost house. If it were just the lick we were dealing with, we probably would have gotten back earlier, but there was another annoying magical beast that complicated things. Ryama, another magical beast. I never heard about that, but if we knew about that we probably wouldn't have kidnapped the young lady. Bandit leader. Why didn't you just give up on the kidnapping? Ryama, that should have been the case. I also chose someone who normally wouldn't have done anything unnecessary. I even warned him time and time again not to, but in the end, greed got to him. Bandit leader. So that's what happened. His subordinate's mistake is what got Elia into this mess. But that's not really the reason behind why that subordinate of his made that mistake. The real reason is that this place demands you to cough up result quickly or else. But wouldn't that kidnapper end up in the cellar if the search for Elia ends up implicating the Dark Guild? While Ryama was thinking that, a man carrying a bag came with several people equipped with spears. That was the man the leader ordered to bring Elia. Spears were constantly pointed at the bag even as the man carried it. A little weight was all that it would take to puncture a hole into the bag. The man walked away after leaving the bag beside the leader, but the spears remained. Open the bag. Ryama, before that I want you to throw away your weapon and armor. Just the armor on your upper body is fine. Then I want you to put this on. It would be really problematic if you ran away the moment you saw her. Bandit leader, the leader threw a pair of metal rings to Ryama. They were handcuffs and a chain connected them. There was also a trace of magic power emanating from them. The handcuffs were clearly cursed. Identify, a curse that blocks magic power. The counter to this is put it on now. Bandit leader. The leader grew impatient when he saw Ryama move so slow and he stepped on the bag. Bag, what are you doing? Ryama, put the cuffs on if you don't behave. Bandit leader, even when Ryama reacted when the leader stepped on the bag, the leader just hurried him even more. This is a good chance. And besides, a curse like this doesn't really matter to this body. Shadow slimes, ready yourselves. Ryama placed his katana on the floor and removed his armor along with his bracers. But he didn't remove his other upper armor, the knife-proof vest that didn't look like an armor and was made from the stickly slime's thread. Everyone watched with rapt attention as Ryoma put on the cuffs. Happy, Ryoma, yes. Open the bag, look. Bandit leader. As the leader yelled and opened the bag, break the magic tools. Arrows, knives, and magic fell one after another toward Ryoma. Foo! Ryoma jumped to the side to dodge the first wave, but more came shooting at him. Were they expecting this? As Ryoma thought that, he threw a projectile toward the leader. What? Bandit leader. The leader immediately reacted as he bended his upper body down, allowing the projectile to only graze past his cheek. But when he saw what Ryoma had thrown, he was shocked. That was none other than one of the very rings that should have been attached to Ryoma's wrist. Storm, Ryoma as a cyclone was summoned. All the knives and arrows were blown away. Ryoma stood at the center without any cuffs on his wrists. TL note. I said we'll finish this week, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Well, either way, we're finishing it this week for sure. I'll post another chapter tomorrow, Volume 5, Chapter 34, Don't Stop. Scarred man, the one who said that was not the leader, but the man who was thrown into the cellar. He didn't have the right to give orders, but it was the right order nonetheless. His ghastly voice kept the other henchmen from stopping fire. Magic and projectiles rained from above, and while Ryoma was able to dodge them with his magic and his nimble movements, he still ended up getting hit. Fortunately, his inner vest was able to block them all, but several arrows were now lodged into it. The outpour of magic and various projectiles continued until one arrow finally managed to make its way to the back of Ryoma's head. Got him. Henchman 1. The henchman rejoiced when he saw his arrow successfully hit Ryoma, but for some reason Ryoma didn't fall down. Right after Ryoma made that sound that wasn't a word, the man that prematurely celebrated was struck by lightning. Kento, Henchman 2, forget him, don't stop shooting, kill him. Leader, he's alive. Henchman 3, you're kidding. He was hit right at the back of his head. Henchman 4, when the kidnappers saw Ryoma keep fighting despite the arrow sticking out of his head, they all started having second thoughts. Those second thoughts caused a delay in their attacks, allowing Ryoma the leeway to cast another lightning spell, this time knocking out several people. It was then that the leader realized something, and he yelled after turning. The hostage is he's behind us. Leader, but it was too late. Of the 3 guards who were watching over the bag, the man in the middle had his neck cut off. The person responsible for that was none other than another Ryoma. When they heard the leader call out to them and saw the head of their comrade flying, the other 2 guards tried to kill the hostage, but they were too slow. Kaya, Hostage Guard 2, Chiga. Hostage Guard 3, the female guard attempted to penetrate the bag with her spear, but before she could, Ryoma kicked her down the cliff. The remaining male guard then tried to thrust his spear into Ryoma, but Ryoma pushed the tip of his spear with his left hand, letting it hit nothing more than the empty air over his right shoulder, then with his iron slime katana broke the spear in half. The katana didn't stop, however, and it kept going into the man's chest until blood spurted out, and the man was no more. Agu, Henchman 5, meanwhile, more and more people were being knocked out by the other Ryoma's lightning magic. Unbeknownst to them, however, the Ryoma that was fighting below was none other than a mimic slime transformed into Ryoma's appearance. Ryoma had already switched with the mimic slime before coming here, and was controlling the slime through sensory link. The mimic slime itself wasn't actually able to talk past the level of a baby, but with Ryoma's help, it could easily pose as the real thing. Moreover, with the mimic slime being a slime, handcuffs had no effect on it, and it wouldn't die unless its nucleus was hurt. With all that in mind, the mimic slime was indeed the best decoy Ryoma could have asked for. While the kidnappers were busy with the fake Ryoma, the real Ryoma had followed the mimic slime and was sneaking around the barrier, while he ordered the slimes to position themselves. And now, with his sneak attack a success, Ryoma took the bag and invoked his magic. Wait, bandit leader, teleport. Bandit leader, as Ryalma vanished with his dimension magic, the mimic slime and his weapons also vanished. The leader bit his lips upon seeing that, but he's above. Bandit leader, he immediately found where Ryalma and the mimic slime were. When he shouted, the rest of the gang followed, and a storm of arrows came shooting at Ryalma and the mimic slime. But with the place Ryalma and the mimic slime were at being above the kidnappers and a blind spot to many, the arrows shot, but they never managed to get past the mimic slime. As the kidnappers continued to shoot at Ryalma and the mimic slime, Ryalma ordered the mimic slime to defend while he confirmed Elia's safety. Upon opening the bag, he saw a girl with blonde hair, but it wasn't Elia. It was someone else. Figures. Ryalma, I couldn't sense Elia's vast magic power, so I already thought this would be the case. Shadow slimes, return. Emperor Grave slime and Rimmel birds, deal with those who try to escape. Magic slimes, metal slimes, and iron slimes wait at the designated location. You may attack if the runaway kidnappers come your way, but don't kill them yet. It looks like I'm gonna have to make that leader talk. After Ryalma was certain that the fake hostage wasn't in any state to fight, he gave orders to his slimes and stood up. Vaccine. Smoky fireball. Ryalma, after casting some anti-poison spell on himself, Ryalma threw down a fireball that emitted black smoke, upon which the leader screamed. Don't breathe that smoke. If you breathe it, it's over. Bandit leader, smoky fireball was a combination spell of the magic attributes, fire and water. The fireball would emit a strong poison, which would scatter to the surrounding. The leader knew this beforehand thanks to the scarred man, but cough, cough, I breath some. Henchman 5, cough. Henchman 6. A direct hit from the spell could certainly knock someone out, but even without that, the smoke emitted could paralyze when inhaled. Many of the surrounding people ended up doing just that, and they fell down to the ground, unable to move. As the wind scattered the black smoke, more and more people fell to the ground. Well, I'm not just gonna stand here doing nothing. Wind. Henchman 7, don't blow the poison here. Henchman 8. Oi, hurry and run. Henchman 9, get out of the way. Henchman 10, the poison had no effect on Ryalma, who casted an anti-poison spell on himself or the slimes, who didn't need to breathe in the first place, but the effects on the kidnappers were catastrophic. Half of them were either knocked out or forced to run, while the remaining half were led by the leader in an attempt to climb up to where Ryalma and his mimic slime were. They still didn't seem to understand what Ryalma not running away meant, as the female mage among them casted earth wall to lift them up, only for them to end up being bombarded by Ryalma's poison while he waited for them up top. By the time they got up, there were only 8 of them left along with the scarred man. If an outsider were to see this situation, he would surely think that Ryalma and the mimic slime were the ones being driven into a corner, but in truth, it was the other way around. You sure not running was wise? Ryalma asked, to which the leader answered. Either way, it's over for us unless we kill you. Bandit leader, as soon as the leader said that, 4 of them attacked Ryalma and the slime. Each one of them brandished their sword or axe, but the mimic slime used its electric magic spark ball to knock them out. As soon as it did, however, the leader came running in to slash his sword diagonally down at Ryalma. In response, Ryalma spun on his right feet to dodge the oncoming attack, while striking the leader's gauntlet with the back of his katana. Unfortunately, the leader managed to pull back in the nick of time, causing Ryalma's attempt to hit nothing more than the leader's sword. The leader clicked his tongue as he tried to retreat, but Ryalma struck again with the back of his katana, this time toward the leader's chin, but then... Ooh! Scarred man. The scarred man let out a great cry as he made a valiant charge for Ryalma. In his hands were a small sake bottle with cloth hanging out of its opening. That thing is dangerous. But right at the very moment Ryalma thought that, fire, scarred man, it was not an attack-type magic but a simple spell that lit something aflame, yet that was more than enough. The scarred man ran for Ryalma while holding the sake bottle that was now stuffed with a cloth lit in flames. Fire! A bomb! Magic hand! Scarred man, as soon as Ryalma thought that, he used magic hand to push away the man and the bomb. In the next instant, the sake bottle that had started to burn inside was pushed away, causing cracks to appear on the bottle and thus making it explode. While it didn't explode right away, it still exploded near enough the scarred man for him to suffer severe burns. The scarred man writhed on the ground away from Ryalma. He actually ran at me with a bomb. Is he mad? Ryalma looked at the leader as he thought that, but for some reason the leader was also surprised. It appears the scarred man was moving on his own accord. While all of this was happening, the slime knocked out another 3, allowing the leader to finally be captured. Can you explain what's going on? Ryalma, their positions reversed. This time the leader was the one being interrogated by the mimic slime, who was still in Ryalma's shape, with his hands cuffed by the magic sealing handcuffs and his whole body restrained by a metal slime. As Ryalma looked at the fake hostage, Ryalma asked the leader to explain the situation. The leader seemed to have resigned himself to his fate, as he started talking honestly like a criminal in some B-rate detective flick. We handed her to a slave trader. Leader, where? Ryalma, the Dark Guild, has many hiding places used to either store dangerous goods or be used as a cellar. So I guess she's either being held in one of those places or being smuggled through the tunnels. Leader, tunnels. Ryalma, it's a story from long ago, but supposedly, the people responsible for making the hiding places found a cave near Teresa, which they used as the starting point to dig the tunnels. Nowadays, adventurers visit that cave to look for magic jewels, but it used to be an unpopular spot that was useful for hiding. The tunnels allow us to transport hot goods quickly, while the smugglers are responsible for transporting them. Leader, after a brief pause, Ryalma continued. Were you trying to buy time by calling me out here, or were you actually aiming for me? Ryalma, we could get another lease on life if we could just get your attention and buy some time. Not doing anything meant either execution or the cellar. If we could make you one of us, well, that would be great. But magic tools that can really bind one's magic are too precious, and without any, we figured it would be easy to just kill you. Leader, in other news, these guys are basically disposable pieces. When Ryalma asked the next question, he asked with a colder, more solemn voice. That's why you brought someone else, because you had no intention of giving back the hostage. Ryalma, if this were last month, we might have brought the real hostage. At that time, we still had a dark mage with us who could cast the curse of obedience, but his heart suddenly stopped before turning into a lick. Leader Ryalma's face twisted when he heard that. That thing was one of yours. Ryalma, used to be. Leader, well, there's no point talking about that now. Tell me how to get to these hiding places of yours. Ryalma, after getting everyone to spill the beans, the rest of the captured kidnappers included, Ryalma sent a Rimmel bird to contact the others while he quickly went south the canyons with the Emperor Slime and the fake hostage girl on his shoulder. You're sure this is the right path? Ryalma, yes. Now please, stop. This thing, I'm going to die. Leader, we don't have time for that. Ryalma ignored the leader that was being flung around beside him while they hurried south. According to the man, the tunnels were dug so deep that one could not go down it, but it allowed one to quickly reach the borders of the country. If one were to go slow, one could be there by tomorrow afternoon, but if fast, one could be there as early as morning. With it being late into the night, Ryalma hadn't the time to dally, so he had the Emperor Grave slimes throw them up whenever they needed to climb up, passing through the tentacles of the slime, while the slime then climbed up by bringing its nucleus and body up the cliff. Then whenever they needed to go down, the slime would go down first, then they would jump onto the slime, using it as cushion. Using this method, Ryalma could directly go south without any detours, but in exchange, the whole process felt like an endless ropeless bungee or reverse bungee. Such a feeling could make even a big man cry, but Ryama persisted while the leader cried as they made their way like this to the nearest hiding place of the Dark Guild. Meanwhile, inside a carriage that rumbled as it drove was a lone girl. It was Elia. When she opened her eyes, she looked around her surroundings. Huh. Elia, there were no windows in the carriage, and the paltry light in her vicinity was barely enough to see anything. Looking down to her hands, she noted that an iron ring was attached onto the both of them, connected by a metal chain. When she looked beside her, she noted that there were two others just like her, who wore the same cuffs. Looking around, she noted that there were even more people, and everyone was cuffed. When Elia moved a bit, the chains rustled, causing the other two in front of her to take notice. "Ah, you're awake, girl on Elia's right. Are you okay? I can't see, but since you were sleeping all this time, you must be in bad condition." Girl on Elia's left. Yes. I don't think there's anything wrong with my body, Elia. At most, she felt a bit lightheaded, but that was to be expected since she just woke up. There was nothing else other than that. She checked her body and her clothes again, but with nothing amiss, she heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. But then again, considering where we are, girl on Elia's left. Where are we? Elia, we've been kidnapped. Girl on Elia's right, I see. Elia, you're not surprised, that's good. Nothing would change even if you made a fuss after all. Girl on Elia's left, the one who told her that they were kidnapped was the girl to her right, while the one who praised her was the girl to her left. You should probably sleep some more. I think they made you inhale some medicine. Girl on Elia's right, you were sleeping all this time after all. Girl on Elia's left, you two are. Elia, we're adventurers. We belong to a party known as Flowers of Famis. Doesn't ring a bell though, huh? Girl on Elia's right, sorry, Elia, don't mind. We're an up-and-coming three-girl party. It would be strange if you've heard of us. Girl on Elia's left, suddenly a man banged on the front door. Shut up, you're noisy. Elia, don't worry, he won't do anything. He'll just yell at most. Girl on Elia's left, we feared he would do something to us too, but after he brought you, everything suddenly became lively and they forgot about us. Girl on Elia's right, the two girls spoke to comfort Elia. We've been on the road all this time without a break. I think they might be running from someone. Girl on Elia's left, someone might be coming to rescue us. It would be bad if we couldn't move then, so you should get some more rest. Girl on Elia's right, when Elia heard about someone possibly coming to save her, the face of four people came to mind. Can I ask something? Elia, what? Girl on Elia's right. Did you see them bring another girl other than me when they brought me here? Elia, the two girls shook their heads. We were in a jail-like place before being stuffed into this carriage, so I don't think there's anyone else. Girl on Elia's right. You were the last one. Were you with someone? Girl on Elia's left. Yes. Elia, as Elia said that, she meekly leaned onto the wall behind her. If the others aren't here, then they'll definitely know that I'm missing. Gramps will surely come to save me. These two girls are right. I shouldn't do anything stupid. Volume 5, Chapter 35. While Ryama was moving as fast as he could to save Elia, the rest of the squad, except for Shiva and Ramiri, were with Oslo's group in the emptied halls of the inn's cafeteria. The atmosphere was solemn, so solemn in fact that they had barely taken a sip from the tea Heckard prepared for them. They waited and waited in that tense atmosphere, leaving their cups to cool, until finally the people they had been waiting for came. Ramiri and Shiva entered the cafeteria. The girls all rose up upon seeing them enter while the adults remained sitting. The first to speak was Rainbach. Any news, Rainbach? A couple of related items, but nothing that could pinpoint exactly where Elia is. Ramiri, while feeling vexed, Ramiri caressed the space slime atop the table. After the girls managed to catch some people that were watching them, Ramiri stepped in to make them talk. The curse of obedience, Rainbach. They're all pawns. They don't know anything, so it's useless. Ramiri, wait, they might be just pawns, but they've got to have a boss or something. We could just catch that person and then make him talk. Riera Ramiri just shook her head at Riera's suggestion, while it was Shiva who actually answered. Unfortunately, they really don't know anything. You've heard of dark gold, right? Shiva, yes, it's an illegal money-lending business operated by the Dark Guild. Riera, right, these people dabbled with dark gold without knowing what they were getting into. When the time to pay came, they were very troubled. Shiva, the Dark Guild used that as an opportunity to get them to help in their business. They were eager to help since it meant reducing their loans. One way they were used was to manipulate information. They would spread rumors of finding a mysterious corpse or a magic jewel mine. Ramiri, and I guess they would be very eager to kidnap adventurers, since they would be able to keep the belongings of their victims, and it would be a simple matter to bring their guild card and say they stumbled onto their corpse. If that adventurer was reported missing, he would quickly be marked Kia, and that would be the end of it. As for the body, they could just say they burned it to keep them from turning into an undead. No one would think it odd for some financially troubled adventurer to go out of town either. Oslo, after hearing Shiva and Ramiri, Oslo spoke out his thoughts. Anger could be felt from every word he spoke, but no one remonstrated him, as everyone felt the same. There are plenty of people who would do anything as long as it benefited them. The Dark Guild specifically picks out such people to walk into the guild and hand out the guild card of a missing adventurer. Even the leader of these people we've caught would be such a person, so there's not much point in Ramiri everyone. Heckard, it was then that the master of the inn, Heckard, suddenly entered the cafeteria. Dear, please calm down. What happened? Nell, a bird came with a letter. It's from Ryle McCunn. Heckard, give it to me. Shiva quickly read the letter, and after gulping, he spoke the contents to everyone. He's found the kidnappers. Shiva, really? Conan, what happened to Elia and Ryle Mahan? Miyabi, Rylma's safe, but it seems the deal was a diversion. He managed to catch the kidnappers and made them talk. According to them, Elia's being taken west through a hidden route. Shiva, west? They're headed for the border. Nell, they've thought about this. If they manage to take her out of the country, we won't be able to follow her. Barak, everyone tensed when Nell and Barak pointed out that fact. Shiva continued to talk about the details written in the letter, but when he got to the last parts, he turned to Heckard. It says here to ask you about the location of the cave. The entrance to the underground passage is supposedly somewhere near the city in a sealed cave. If I recall correctly, you spoke to Rylma about some cave near a dump site a few days ago. If you know, please tell us where that cave is. Shiva, I know that place. That's where the entrance is. Heckard, according to this, Rylma got them to spill the beans after tying them up. The dump site in Troll Canyon is one of the entrances they gave. The other entrances aren't very far from the dump site either. I know from experience that these sort usually prefer some place that's neither too far nor too close to carry out their vile deeds. I plan to propose a search around the dump site, but yes, we do at least have one sure lead. Shiva, as Shiva said that, Heckard took out a map to give directions to the cave. Will you also be departing for the cave? Everyone seems like they're about to go. Sebasu said as he faced Oslo's group. The 6 of us here have already recovered. Oslo, according to your story, those bastards have something to do with my little girl. Well, if that's the case, I can't be standing around here doing nothing. Nell, I won't be satisfied unless I beat them all up myself. Barak, Oslo's group seemed like they would come even if refused, but before the group could respond, the 4 girls also voiced their desire to come. Please let us fight too. Riera, we might be inexperienced, but we're willing to learn. Michelle, we want to save Elia no matter what. Kana, please take us along. Miyabi, the decision was up to Rainbach's group. Jumping into the fray is a bit. Considering you're doing all this for my granddaughter, Rainbach, why not just bring them? Ramiri. Rainbach, just when Rainbach was thinking of refusing them, Ramiri suddenly interjected. At that, Rainbach decided to take Ramiri and Shiva to a corner to discuss for a moment. What are you thinking? Rainbach, those girls know how to fight. And besides, you know just as much as I do from that earlier talk that there are enemies among the guards and adventurers here. These 6 adventurers here are fine, but we don't know how far the Dark Guild's influence goes. Do you really think it wise to leave these girls in such a dangerous city? Ramiri, according to Ryama's letter, we're not in a situation where we can afford to split our forces. I agree it's dangerous to leave them here, but if we're taking them, they'll have to obey every order. They can't be allowed to do as they please. Shiva had a stern face on him, but he agreed to take them along. In the end, Rainbach reluctantly agreed. All right, we agreed to take you along. But before we go, I want to absolutely make sure that you know what you're getting into. This trip will be dangerous. Are you willing to go despite that? Ramiri, the 4 girls grit their teeth as they nodded to Ramiri. If you've made up your minds, I won't ask again. But before we leave, you'll have to leave a will. Write on it that you're coming on your own volition regardless of the risks. Got it? Ramiri, Rainbach, lend me Sebasu. Sebasu, I need you to bring me to the border patrol. I need to tell them about the Dark Guild and the criminals trying to run through the borders and have them tighten security. If these kidnappers are headed there, they might just catch them somewhere along the way, who knows? Shiva understood. Are we going right away? Sebasu. Yes. As for everyone else, please finish whatever preparations you need. We won't take long. Shiva, at those words, Oslo's group left the cafeteria with Heckard, while the girls went to their rooms to write their wills, and Shiva and Sebasu left through dimension magic. The only ones left in the cafeteria were Rainbach and Ramiri. Ramiri, what's the point of writing a will? Rainbach, I just figured if they were going to get cold feet, they might as well now. I don't actually have any intention of putting those wills to use. Think I'll let them die. Not under my watch. Ramiri, right. I think I better double-check my preparations. Rainbach, the 2 left in the cafeteria quietly hardened their resolve. Volume 5, Chapter 36. Not far from the city in Troll Canyon was the hastily made rescue group of Elia. A tall cliff was before them, and in one corner could be seen a giant rock as tall and as wide as several adults put together. Is this the place? Rainbach. Yep, no doubt about it. That's the cave that leads to the underground passage. The entrance should be at the end of this opening here. Shiva's gaze was upon a crack in the cliff beside the giant boulder that was barely big enough for a person to pass through. According to the letter, this opening here should lead to a passage after opening it with earth magic. Rainbach, Sebasu, Shiva, all right. Rainbach, understood. Sebasu, Rainbach, and Sebasu went through the narrow crack with Rainbach's assassin snake, while the others kept watch for any bandit that might attack the moment the path opened. Break rock, Rainbach. As Rainbach signaled with his hands, he invoked his earth magic, causing the deepest part of the crack to collapse and opening a path big enough for people to pass through one at a time. There were no signs of enemy even after the path was opened, so Rainbach checked his surroundings for a bit, and after confirming that the coast was clear, he called out, "It's clear." Rainbach, good, let's go. Shiva, the first to follow, were Oslo's group, followed by the 4 girls and Ramiri, and then Shiva. It's huge. Oslo's party member, just as one of Oslo's friends said, the interiors of the cave were huge. The Dark Guild had removed almost everything unnecessary to create a path big enough to fit several carriages side by side. If not for the untouched ceiling and the narrow stones extending from it, it would be almost impossible to tell that the place was a limestone cave. Wind is blowing from the other side. Oslo, the direction Oslo pointed to, was none other than the direction toward the deeper parts of the cave, a path made from clearing the stalactites in the cave. Wait, let me get our transport ready. Rainbach summoned 2 magical beasts with a body 10 meters long and the shape of a crescent moon, upon which were ruffled thorns and a tail at the back. Spike armor armadillo, huh? Oslo, they don't look good and aren't very comfortable to ride on, but they're much faster than horses. Just sit yourselves in between the scales and lean your back onto them. Rainbach, Everyone took on Rainbach's suggestion and rode on the back of the spike armor armadillos except for Oslo, who could fly. Like that, they rode through the passage as fast as they could, tearing through the humid air as they did. After a few minutes of following the path, the interiors changed from the natural look of a cave to something man-made. The width and height of the road remained unchanged, but the ground and the walls were now clearly man-made, magic jewels faintly lighting the path from the walls, just enough to see through the dimly lit tunnel without needing extra light. The road slanted downwards, and air could sometimes be felt through the holes in the walls to the sides. No enemies came, not even undead, despite the whole place being seemingly built for an attack. They followed the crooked tunnel like that until Conan suddenly said out loud, "This smell! I smell explosives up ahead." Conan-chan, are you sure? Remiri, yes. It's the same smell I smelled when I was brought to observe drilling and blasting as part of my magic tool artisan training. Conan Ryoma did mention the enemy being in possession of gunpowder. Can you tell where the explosives are? Shiva, the smell is strong, but Conan, I see. We'll just have to keep an eye out for it. Rainbach, Shiva, I'll slow down a bit. Rainbach after Rainbach ordered his magical beasts to slow down, and then proceeding down the tunnel for a good minute or two, the smell of explosives became apparent not just to the dog tribe member Conan, but also to everyone else. It seems to be up ahead. Sebasu, just as Sebasu said, after continuing down the path, they reached a dead end. The lights were gone and the tunnel was collapsed, leaving behind only the strong scent of explosives. It takes a great deal of specialized knowledge to handle explosives. The slightest mistakes could lead to an unfortunate accident. Moreover, with fire and earth magic being much easier to use, not to mention cheaper and safer, explosives were really only used in mining and in the army. But right now that very explosive was used to collapse the tunnel, forcing Elia's rescuers to a standstill. I don't hear anything and the dust hasn't been stirred up. It's safe to say that the tunnel was collapsed long before we got here. I don't know how much of the tunnel's been collapsed, but we don't have any other lead other than this. We'll have to clear out the rubble. But just to safe, let's first dig out another path to ensure we have a way out. Be careful not to cause a cave-in. Shiva, as Shiva gave orders with a stern face, the group started to dig. But it was then that the girls did something they didn't expect. Dig tornado. Michelle, the spell Michelle casted was essentially break rock mixed with a tornado. With a single cast, she immediately managed to cut open a path 7 to 10 meters ahead. Having lost their support, the rocks started to collapse, but it was a good distance away, so they didn't get caught up in Michelle's tornado. Some rocks still blocked the path, so Michelle casted another spell. Crack, Miyabi. Michelle, leave it to me. Flame bomb. Miyabi, after Michelle created a crack inside the rocks, Miyabi blew them up. Rainbach and Oslo's group ensured that the road would hold up, and because they were working together, they were able to spread out the consumption of magic power among them. While all of this was happening, Conan and Riera were digging out another path outside just to be safe. When they managed to dig out a path leading outside, some undead appeared, which they quickly subjugated to keep the others from wasting their strength. Dig tornado, we did it. Michelle, after casting the spell ceaselessly, a hole could finally be seen in the rubble leading to the rest of the tunnel. Barak and Shiva went ahead to check for enemies, and when they were sure that the coast was clear, they called out to the others. Good job. We wasted a good 20 minutes or so because of this, but if it weren't for you, I'm sure we would have spent longer here. Block the alternate route we made and bring everyone here. We're continuing our chase. Shiva, yes. Michelle and Miyabi. After gathering everyone and passing through the rubble, they all drank some potions to recover their strength, and then they continued through the rest of the tunnel in pursuit of Elia Volume 5, Chapter 30. 7 Elia's rescuers continued through the tunnels, until eventually the sound of hooves galloping about reached their ears. This sound. Michelle can't see them yet, but that's definitely them, right? Oslo, the spike armor armadillos ran side by side through the tunnel as it curved to the right. With the sounds echoing in the cave, the other side must. V surely heard them as well, so Shiva told everyone to ready for battle. As the curve ended and the path once again turned straight, 2 rows of escorts and a carriage came to view. There was a good distance between them, so Rainbach ordered his armadillos to hurry. The enemy wore a cloth over their nose and mouth, and had a shield on each of their backs. The 2 carriages weren't alone. They were being escorted by a group of horsemen who, after seeing Elia's rescuer approaching, ran up to inform the carriage to hurry. As the carriage hurried, the horsemen fell back to fight Elia's rescuers. 11 horsemen. They're coming. Shiva. Fire arrow. Enemy. As the groups neared each other, the enemy simultaneously casted a volley of fireballs which the group blocked, responding in kind with offensive magic. But the enemy was surprisingly well trained, and with 6 horsemen in front they would switch with the 5 behind, alternating between defense and offense. Like this, the enemy steadily blocked the path while defending against the rescue group. They're surprisingly well trained, but unfortunately for them, Rainbach Chan. Remiri, I know, Rainbach. Shadow Needle Remiri. As the 2 groups neared each other, Remiri chanted. What? Horseman 1, impossible. Horseman 2, ah. Horseman 3, 4, 5, 2 of the horsemen running in front coughed out blood as they fell from their horse. Rainbach's armadillos dodged them, but the enemy horsemen weren't as fortunate, as 3 of them ended up either crashing onto the horses or tripping on the riders. It's the Witch of Deathly Shadow. We're too close. Get away, cough. Horseman 6, the horseman tried to give out orders, but it was too late, and a shadow needle was already lodged into his throat. I never liked that name. How long has it been since I was last called that? 70 years. Remiri, the last thing the horseman saw was a black needle coming out of his own armor as it buried itself into his throat. When he looked around him before he lost the last of his consciousness, he saw his comrades dying in the same way. Slipping through the onslaught of spells, the rescue group broke through the horsemen to approach the 2 carriages. But just when they right at the 2 carriages' heels, the magic power emanating from the enemy side made the members and the armadillos stiffen. Anyone could feel how dangerous that vast amount of magic power was. The source of it was a lamp-like object that was hanging from an eccentric-looking man's neck, wrapped around him by a chain. As soon as Remiri saw the man's lips move, she yelled, "Block it! Shadow wall!" Remiri immediately after. A shadow wrapped itself around the entire rescue group as a blizzard blew in the tunnel. As the 2 armadillos stopped, hail rained against them from the summoned blizzard, but the wall of shadow protected them. The blizzard lasted less than a minute, taking all the ice with it as it ceased, but while the group managed to endure it thanks to Remiri, she came out spent. Remiri, Rainbach, I'm fine. That spell just now was a bit strong, but you don't have to worry about me. Focus on directing the kids. Remiri drank a potion to recover her magic power while Barak spoke. Hey, one of the carriages is stopping. Barak, they're 300 meters ahead of us. They have 12 guards with them, one of which is that magician from before. It's been moving unsteadily for a while now. There are probably people inside. Oslo, if the kidnapped children are inside that carriage, then are they trying to provoke us? Either way, they don't look like they have any intention of running. Nell, the group that stopped ahead, seemed to have no intention of running away. It was curious whether it was because they wished to avoid having their men trip on each other like they did a while ago. But even the mage that casted that blizzard just now went down the carriage and started encouraging the other bandits. The enemy looks like they're itching for a fight too, but a battle on land suits us just fine. Shiva? Yeah. Oslo's party, Barak along with 2 others and Shiva-san went down the armadillos with their best weapons as they approached the enemy. Not long after the sound of battle echoed in the tunnel. Meanwhile, inside the dark carriage, the chains binding the victims rustled. They knew that help had come, but damn it, I can't get it off. Male Adventurer 1. No way it's going to go off just by hitting it, dumbass. Male Adventurer 2. Can the two of you shut up? Girl on Elia's left. What's your problem? Can't you tell from that magic just now? Male Adventurer 1, of course, but that's all the more reason why it'll be harder to run now. At the very least, you should keep your voices down. Girl on Elia's right. Then why don't you do something? Male Adventurer 2. The carriage has stopped and it's probably a mess outside right now. If we let a chance like this go, who knows when we'll get another. Besides, there's a chance the rescue squad might lose. Male Adventurer 1. You think you can actually run from people like that just by removing those cuffs? Girl on Elia's left. Then what do you think we should do? Male Adventurer 2. A pair of male adventurers against a pair of female adventurers. It wasn't the time for it, but the two groups couldn't help but argue. It didn't help that the two men were shaking in fear because of their lack of experience and the magic from a while ago. Can I say something? Elia, while the two pairs of adventurers were arguing pointlessly, Elia, who was sitting between the two female adventurers, suddenly spoke. The one who came to save us is none other than Shiva Gardaksama. I heard his voice just now, so I'm sure it's him. Elia, the former knight commander. Male Adventurer 1. No way, wait, actually, there was that rumor going around saying he was in Teresa. Male Adventurer 2. It's not a rumor, it's true. Which is why he must have heard about us from somewhere and came to rescue us. The former royal court magician also seems to be with him. Elia, the former royal court magician. Male Adventurer 1. Yes, so I don't think they'll easily lose. I'm sure it'll be fine. Elia Hha, Male Adventurer 2. We're really actually going to be rescued. Male Adventurer 1. The two male adventurers finally calmed down after Elia brought up Shiva's and Ramiri's titles. Pathetic. I can't believe a younger girl is actually more composed than a pair of fully grown men. Girl on Elia's left. Maral, girl on Elia's right. Yeah, I know, I'll think of something. Maral, although Maral's words were harsh, the two men didn't say anything in retort. But seriously, what are we going to do? We can't break these cuffs with brute force. Maral, if we could just use magic. Girl on Elia's right. These cuffs are a kind of magic tool, huh? Elia, yep, which is why you can't use magic with them on. Try casting a spell, you'll find it's not possible. Maral curtly replied when Elia asked. When Elia tried to use her spell just as she suggested, Elia, what is it? Girl on Elia's right, this thing is certainly obstructing the flow of magic, but I can still wring out a little. Elia. Everyone else. All eyes gathered on Elia when she said that, and for a moment everything went quiet, but not long after, everyone started talking in hushed voices. Young lady, could it be that your cuffs are broken? Male Adventurer 2, who cares? What matters is that she's free to use magic. Maral, Elia-chan, what kind of magic can you use? Girl on Elia's right. I can only wring out a little bit of magic power, so nothing more than an elementary fire or ice spell. Elia, everyone dropped their shoulders when they heard that, but Elia thought of a good idea. A magic she can use even with a little bit of magic power. When she told everyone about it, they were incredulous, but with no other option, they decided to try it. Let's check what's going on outside first. There's a chance they might detect even that little bit of magic power. Girl on Elia's right. No one voiced any complaints against the female adventurer's words. Everyone went quiet and sharpened their ears. What they heard were the sound of jeers and the cries of people dying. The fierceness of the battle could be felt even through that simple wall that separated them. If we go now, wait. Maral. But then the sound suddenly went silent. Everyone was on tenterhooks as they wondered what was going on, when, persistent, aren't we? Shiva, I could say the same for you, former knight commander. I can't believe you can actually fight that well at that age. I know our men are a bit tired, but... Your goal. Shiva, for a brief moment, people started talking outside, but then someone suddenly cried out in a loud voice, and then the battle resumed. Looks like they were just taking a breather, Marol, to think that an S rank really came, male adventurer 2. It's all right now, Elia-chan. Let's do it. Girl on Elia's right. As Elia prayed for her magic not to be detected, she struck out her hand and casted a spell. Heat. Elia, the spell she casted was none other than the spell she casted ceaselessly to the point of being sick of it during her training with Ryalma. Just like in her training, she emitted weak fire magic power, which she focused onto the chains connecting her cuffs, slowly but surely raising the temperature. What's the matter? Marol, can you not use your magic after all? Girl on Elia's right. It's working, but the magic power is so little, it's going to take some time. Elia calming herself, Elia mustered more magic power than the tool could ever hope of stopping. Only a little bit came out in the end, but she focused that small bit of magic power into a single point, and gradually the temperature rose. The heat emanating from the spell along with the fatigue of concentrating made Elia sweat. You don't have to push, is that? Marol was about to tell her not to push herself, but then Elia's magic finally bore fruit. Just a little bit more. Elia, as the chains went red from the heat, the magic tool's effect on Elia began to wane. Elia stopped for a moment, then casted heat again, but this time with less magic power than before. As time passed, the chains began to soften until finally the chains fell to the ground. Fire looked like it was about to spread, but a swift cast of ice magic settled that problem easily. Anyway, I guess we can call this a success. Elia, although she had some trouble at first, in the end, Elia managed to take her first step in preparing for their eventual escape. Volume 5, Chapter 38. Blizzard. Mage Leader. Shadow Wall. Ramiri Shiva swung his halberd, and the man before him tottered back, forcefully casting a spell in the nick of time which Ramiri blocked. After the raging blizzard calmed down, the two sides glared at each other. Sigh, I know it's wrong to cry foul during battle, but seriously. Just where the heck did they get this absurd magic tool that can absorb magic power? Our offensive magic disappears before it can hit them. Our defensive magic is weaker, man. What a pain, seriously. Barak grumbled, and the lampusing mage that was fighting Shiva spoke. And yet we've already lost 3 men while only one of you is injured. Mage Leader. Despite the overwhelming advantage of the enemy thanks to that lamp of theirs, the ones currently winning were none other than the rescuers. That being said, however, the situation was no less grim thanks to the enemy mage. Ramiri hypothesized the source of his strength being the lamp, and so Shiva tried to destroy it, but the mage was no slouch and was able to protect the lamp. The chain connected to that lamp rustled as the man looked to the rescuer's only injured member, who was taking refuge under the cover of the armadillos while the girls nursed him. It was only for a moment, however, as he was immediately forced to turn back his gaze at Shiva. He couldn't keep his attention away for long lest he left himself open to an attack, but what really caught his attention was Shiva talking. It seems you have some skill, so why? Why are you wasting your strength in a place like this? Shiva, what are you? Mage Leader, you people are soldiers, aren't you? Shiva, those few words shocked both groups, then Shiva continued. To be more precise, you're former soldiers. Former soldiers who once aspired to be knights. Shiva, why? Mage Leader, the way you handle your sword is something I myself have been trained in when I was once a trainee. It is also the same technique I drilled into my subordinates. I may be putting on the years, but I haven't gone senile yet to not notice that. With skills like that, there shouldn't be any need for you to turn to banditry. If you use them properly, even riches and honor isn't far off. Shiva, don't lump us in with bandits. Bandit 1, we haven't been so sullied by money as to have ever attack a defenseless woman. Bandit 2, stop it. The only thing that matters is our justice. Mage Leader, the enemy did not take kindly to Shiva's words. They cried out with bitterness in response, and it was the lampusing mage who stopped them. At which point this time Barak cried out, Justice! What justice would scum like you know? Barak, the concept of justice might differ from person to person, but I don't think there's any justice to be found in kidnapping people. Oslo, I don't expect you to understand. Mage leader, the lamp-using mage did not bother to argue as the situation reached a boiling point, and then it was curious who it was that moved first. Was it Shiva, the former knight commander, or the mage with his seemingly twisted sense of justice? But regardless, the curtains were once again drawn and the battle resumed. Ha! Ra! The enemy attacked with a ferocity that suggested they were ready for death, while the rescuers battled them calmly. Still, the battle was no walk in the park, as the enemy mages made the battle that much more difficult. Ugu, bandit, don't underestimate us. Nell, Ka. Barrack Nell wrapped her whip around the neck of one of the bandits when he let his guard down, pulling him down to the ground and allowing Barrack to finish him off. The lamp-using mage grit his teeth when he saw that. Then he yelled to the 4 mages supporting them from the back. It's gotten to this point, do it. Mage leader, in that instant 2 of the mages at the back unsheathed their swords and ran to the carriage. Water cutter, Sebasu, fire arrow, Rainbok. When the rescue group saw what was happening, Sebasu and Rainbok casted their magic, but it had no effect. Shiva then stepped out to try and break through, but Goo, you're not going anywhere. Mage leader, the lamp-using mage, ran after Shiva to stop him despite the wound in his body. But then all of a sudden the sound of explosion resounded throughout the tunnel as the carriage was blown away, giving rise to dust and smoke. You're kidding. Khan in the carriage her friend was riding on just exploded. It was only natural she would be anxious, and in fact it wasn't just her but the whole group whose countenance had gone pale. They're making a run for it. Bandit. Damn, they saw us. Hurry. Male adventurer 1. Doing whatever he wants. Marl, let's go already. Girl, who was sitting on Elia's right. One of the bandits running to the carriage was blown away, while the remaining one managed to survive. When he saw the 2 male adventurers running from the carriage unarmed along with the 3 girls, he called out in alarm. Elia was among the runaways, but the rescuers did not have the leisure to heave a sigh of relief upon seeing her safe. With the runaways having no armor on, a single blow was all it would take to fatally injure one of them. The remaining 2 mages at the back casted strengthening magic on themselves before giving chase, while the rescuers attacked even fiercer to try and stop them, but the lamp-using mage would not let them pass. Firewall. Elia. Thunderbolt. One of the runaways. The unarmed runaways had no choice but to run where there were no enemies. They casted a spell or 2 as they ran, but it had little effect past annoying the bandits. There was not much distance between the runaways and those fighting next to the carriage to begin with, so it came as no surprise that the bandits were able to close the distance in no time at all. The runaways prayed as they ran. Every step they took, every breath they took, echoed loudly in their ears. When they turned around to look, they saw 2 men bring their swords up. Elia glared at them as she inadvertently braced herself for death. Then one of the men struck her with his sword, pursuing Mage 3, but before he could land that blow, an arrow had suddenly found its way through his head. As Elia saw the man tumble to the ground after losing his life, she tripped over herself and fell as well. When she turned to look at her remaining pursuer, she noted that he too had stopped. And in the next instant, a man wielding a blood-smeared katana stood between her and her pursuer. Jaya, pursuing Mage 4, that man cut down her pursuer with a stroke of his blade, at which point Elia finally realized who it was that saved her. Ryalma-san, Elia, looks like I made it. Ryalma ignored the wary gazes of the female adventurers with Elia, looking instead to where the rest of the battle was unfolding. Ryalma was relieved to have finally caught up to Elia, but the lamp-using mage was not happy. He yelled as he crossed swords with Shiva. Don't get in our way. Mage leader, seeing the pursuing mages be defeated, finally pushed the lamp-using mage past the end of his patience, as he cast another blizzard and left the front line to rush to where Ryalma was. Step back. Ryalma implored the female adventurers, and Elia to move back while he fought with the lamp-using mage. He crossed swords with him once, then twice, and then thrice. When their swords locked, the lamp-using mage cursed. "Cleaner, if it weren't for you. Mage leader, of course I'll get in your way. That's the very reason why I came here, Alpodo." Ryalma the lamp-using mage did not expect Ryalma to know his name, and so for one moment he froze. Ryalma did not let that opportunity pass, as he made full use of it to send the man flying. The lamp-using mage quickly picked himself up, but he was clearly more vigilant now than ever. "Why, do you know that name, Alpodo? I learned a lot of things before coming here. I know that you planned all of this, and I know your goals too. Really, who would have thought that a member of the Dark Guild would try to crush the very organization he serves?" Ryalma knew from the kidnappers. He interrogated that the tunnel had been blown up, so he took a different route and went via one of the other hideouts of the Dark Guild to meet Elia's convoy from the other side. Thanks to that, Ryalma managed to gain a lot of information after crushing said hideout. When Alpodo heard that, his grim countenance became even grimmer. The Dark Guild is a den of evildoers. An organization like that torments the innocent without cause deserves to be destroyed. Alpodo, which is why you targeted Elia. By kidnapping the Duke's daughter, you plan to incite a calamity upon the Guild, which is also why you went out of your way to contact me, so that you could leave proof that Elia was in fact kidnapped. Ryalma, it had to be done. The Dark Guild has supporters even among the nobles. The only way to call a calamity upon it is to taint its name with a sin so grave it couldn't be pardoned. Alpodo, in other words, the bigger the issue became, the better it would be for you. And you found a way to do just that. You made it so that the kidnappers that contacted me would eventually lead to the discovery of the Dark Guild storehouses, allowing you to push all the blame onto the kidnappers. You sure used them well, didn't you, Alpodo? Even me. Unfortunately. Ryalma suddenly looked toward the lamp dangling at Alpodo's chest, as Alpodo chantlessly casted an ice spear toward Ryalma. Ryalma managed to dodge by a hair's breadth thanks to detecting the trace of magic power, but Alpodo continued with a sword strike to his neck. Again Ryalma dodged, but this time an ice arrow came flying at Ryalma, which he canceled out with his own fire arrow. In the next instant, Alpodo lifted his sword and slashed down at Ryalma. In response, Ryalma stepped diagonally to the left as he raised his katana up vertically to meet Alpodo's descending sword. The moment their swords clashed, Ryalma's katana vanished from Alpodo's sight, leaving him with nothing to hit but thin air. Then the katana that vanished suddenly descended on his head. "Ah, Ryalma." Alpodo, right before their swords clashed, Ryalma twisted his body, and as he supported his right hand that was holding his katana, he drew a circular motion with his katana as if he were rowing a boat. The slight movement of his left hand lifting inclined the katana downwards, allowing him to hit back after shifting his stance. Alpodo had no backups left, and with his body wounded from his battle with Shiva, though he pushed his body back as soon as he noticed Ryalma's descending katana, he could not make it in time. As the Kyrian-forced katana descended, slashing diagonally downwards until his right side, the chains holding the lamp were cut along the lamp and his armor. Huff, huff. Alpodo blood spurted as the chains fell down. Alpodo kept his sword facing Ryalma, but being wounded, his gait remained unsteady. It was then that two shadows suddenly came, cough, Alpodo piercing through Alpodo's neck and heart. "Ryalma's not the only one you're facing. Shiva, surely you expected this, right? I mean, you did turn your back on us." Oslo Aha. Alpodo, the two shadows were none other than Shiva and Oslo. Following after them were Barak and Nell. In the midst of all that, as the rest of the rescue group gathered their weapons and stood in row, Alpodo quietly took the last of his breath. TL note. And with this, we've finally finished the first version of TMPG. To all my readers, thank you for your continued support, the donations, for reading, and for sticking with the series despite the translation sometimes slowing to a crawl. There are still some leftover donation in the bar, but rest assured, those donations will be carried on to the revised version of TMPG. For the record, I did post some extra chapters after receiving those, but I never counted them against the donation bar because of the lack of a regular schedule, TMPG revised. For those of you who don't know, TMPG, or The Man Picked Up by the Gods, was prematurely ended here due to writer's block. The author has been writing a reboot which I will be picking up. If I recall correctly, there shouldn't be a lot of changes in the reboot until Volume 3, at which point the series will begin to branch off. As of now, there are 113 chapters, 40 of which belong to the third volume. From the date of postings, the series seemed to be updated monthly. Schedule change. Now, with TMPG finishing, there will be a change in schedule. I'm going back to my old schedule of having one main project, which I will be updating frequently. TMPG will continue to be translated along with KMF, but they'll be both relegated to side projects until I finish with GK, at which point I'll be looking for a new main project. New schedule: 1. GK 4 chapters weekly plus at least 3 extra chapters. For GK fans, more info. Tom. Donations are still closed. I need to fix some stuff. 2. TMPG 1 chapter monthly. Note: the chapters are a lot longer than these last chapters. Really. 3. KMF 1 chapter monthly plus Nadinachitai's translations.